the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So I want to remind everybody that this meeting is being telecast and recorded on Channel 14. I also remind any member of the public who wishes to make an audio or video recording of the open session of this meeting to first notify me as chair, and I will inform the public of the recording as required by the open meeting law. Quote time. The first one's not a quote, but I saw it. I got to say. I saw this. It got me. So we live on a blue planet that circles around a ball of fire next to a moon that moves the sea. And you really don't believe in miracles? No. All right, my one quote, very short, quoting Maya Angelou. Try to be a rainbow in somebody's cloud. All right, first on the session is public comment. Please limit comments to 2 minutes per individual. There will be no debate or action taken on public comment items. The committee will take items under advisement, or the individual may request an item to be placed on a future agenda. Are there any public comments? Ms. Murata, please step up, identify yourself.
Hello, my name is Heidi Murata. I'm in Precinct 5, and I'm a former school committee member. I was on the board for 7 years. I'm speaking on behalf of the Falmouth field hockey girls. There's been a lot of information that's been published in the newspapers about the fields, and I guess I'm actually really shocked and surprised that they've selected that site again. Looking back on the history of the rink selection trying to go in there, and also previously the senior center once before, I thought that location was off the plate. One of my really big concerns is that a turf field is not an adequate replacement, because that will be used by all field sports, and the field hockey team will not have a practice field. My other concern is that when you have public forums and meetings, people should be able to weigh in on it. And the newspaper reports seem like it's a done deal and it's a decision that's already been made by selectmen. So I'm surprised, because I thought the school committee controlled the property, and I'm looking forward to the school committee future meetings and having this on the agenda so that I can support the teams and the athletics that go on at the high school. So hopefully we'll see that in the future, and that we'll be able to make sure that there's no interruption of those activities, and that we will be able to discuss this as a town and not just have a single body like the selectmen make an announcement that this is the location for a site, when in fact the school committee has not been involved in this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? Please step up.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Janie Norton. I'm the former field hockey coach of 21 years here at the high school. I left coaching begrudgingly to take an administrative position in Bourne. So I want to add one other entity to what Ms. Murata said, that years ago we also had the field being looked at when Dr. Clark was here for affordable housing for town employees. And in all of these cases, when they studied the surrounding fields, the surrounding areas, it came up consistently that there wasn't another viable option at the high school for a field hockey field. And I want to state that it's not just the field hockey team, it's also the lacrosse team. Cross country uses it as a route. The youth lacrosse and youth field hockey programs use that. On a coaching personal note, you know, there are a lot of things we try to teach our children. Some are tangible and some are not. Some we can see in front of us, and some we know that carries with our students and athletes for years to come. And I can personally attest to the fact that the care and maintenance of that field had a major impact, not just on the athletes, but also their families that participated in that. I can easily state that we saved DPW in the town tens of thousands of dollars in the cares that our family took. Actually, there are two former members, Peter Kerwin and Judy Fenwick, that personally mowed that field hockey field several times to keep it in shape, because we knew the DPW didn't have the resources for it. And when the overuse came on the field, in-kind services through many different companies, with the help of Steve Haddad and Callahan Construction and Cavosa and Aqua Irrigation and the like, we actually took out a ton of trees, tens of thousands of dollars of tree removal, stump removal, grading, we upgraded the irrigation, we upgraded the electrical out there, and that was at no cost to the town. And all of that was done through the families, through volunteerism. So it's those kinds of lessons that, in terms of kids and families and businesses giving back to the communities, that's irreplaceable. And you can't do that with the kids. So in terms of, you know, every time I hear a new entity that wants these fields, I always ask myself, what about the people that are already using this area? And to have an outside group just to come in and think it trumps what the use is already being, the field's already being used for, I think it's really unfair to those people. So I hope this does become, I guess I'm officially requesting this become an agenda item. And in the past, we've always had the school committee support, and I hope that we continue to have that. Because I want to tell you that we hope the traditions over in that area of the school campus continue. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Nice job, both of them. I'm just here to answer questions.
Okay, if there are no other public comments, we're going to...
One question.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Courtney Lima. I'm the newest math teacher at the Falmouth High School. I'm also now currently the varsity field hockey coach at the high school. And I am asking for the school committee's support in answering questions and including myself in the athletic department from the high school and part of this process. Like Ms. Norton just said, that field is more than just an area to put a building on. It has a lot of value emotionally to the girls, the families in this community, and I just ask that you include the right people in the process while making this decision. So, thank you.
Thank you. So, as I said, this is public comment, there's no discussion. I would suggest to the people who have made these comments that the Board of Selectmen is also somebody that you should be making these comments to. All right, any other public comment? All right, moving on. Sia, sorry, Theodora.
It's okay, I get it sometimes. So, on the other note, I have a brief report about the beginning of school. So St. Julian, the new vice principal, made an appearance on the first day of school, and the whole student body seemed to have a positive feedback. I know he talked in the cafeteria to my class, and everyone thought he was great. So I wanted to add that. Falmouth varsity football won over Westwood with a 34-7 win in their opening home game, and a lot of students, myself included, went to watch the game and support them. The athletic director, Mr. Wakefield, and Gatorade representatives held a meeting after school on Monday, and they basically just informed students on proper nutrition for before games, just to help improve their performance. And the class officer elections for seniors were held on Monday. Tuesday, today was a half day, so there were no elections. Juniors will be held tomorrow, and sophomores on Thursday. My parent survey is also ready to be distributed, and I've been working with Mrs. Gans and Mr. Feeney to get it out, and it looks like next week sometime will be when it is distributed. And I also have a copy here if anyone is interested after the meeting and looking at that.
What is the focus of that survey, Theodore?
There's not really a specific focus, it's just informative, so we can get an idea of how parents feel about homework.
About homework, I'm sorry.
Yeah, to continue the project.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Theodora? Thank you, Theodora.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the safety presentation by the police and fire departments. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Craig O'Malley from the Falmouth Fire Department. I'm the EMS supervisor.
And I'm Jeff Smith. I'm a captain with the police department here in Falmouth. I'm in charge of the detective division, where the school resource officer is assigned in my division.
I am Deputy Smith with the Fire Department. Sorry, late. I actually had a call to go on, so I can never say that, but it's true.
And I'm Bob Griffin, coordinator for school safety for Falmouth.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Sharon, for... So, We had a very short amount of time that we were asked to make a quick presentation to you guys about our initiative that we have been undertaking for some time now. The four of us have been involved with school safety activities in school, mainly the lockdowns. And we just wanted to give you a quick little overview, and we'll each try and be brief. I know that you guys are pretty busy this evening, but this is good stuff, so we'll see what we can do. So we just wanted to start off by just introducing what we do in the schools. And mainly what we're doing is we have a joint participation between the fire, police, and also the school administration. Superintendent Taylor, Pat Murphy, the principals and maintenance staff, everybody have been very supportive of our activities in the school, and it makes our job a lot easier when we go into the schools and try and conduct drills and then do post-drill debriefings and such to work on the next time that we have a drill. We established this on or about 1999. It was after Columbine. We started with some past superintendents. It was very slow to get off the ground, unfortunately. It was something new. It was one of those things that a lot of people didn't want to talk about because nobody really wanted to talk about having an active shooter in their school or having some emergency or crisis that was in the school. So they had some outside consultants come in, and they did a little bit of work, and we were slow to get it off the ground, but right now we think that we have a great program and we have good resources amongst ourselves, and we've been conducting some good activity in the school each year. Planning begins very early in the year, as you can expect. We look at what we did the year before. We try and mix it up a little bit because we don't want to always have the same process going into the schools, particularly with the lockdown procedures. And Captain Smith can discuss that a little more because that's his bailiwick. It's been very successful so far because of our joint venture between us. We speak quite often, and we're always on the same page, and we're trying to improve as we go along. Lockdowns are the norm now. They're coming about just like school fire drills. School fire drills were, came about because of tragedies in the past, and the same thing with lockdowns. Lockdowns are a result of, the tragedies that have happened and the evil that's out there, and we have to be prepared. So we have fire drills, quarterly fire drills in the schools each year. And we don't do that many with the lockdowns. It takes a little bit more time, but we have a good comprehensive program, and we do conduct the lockdowns as regular as we can. All right, so why are we here tonight? Again, just to give a quick brief discussion about what we do. How we operate in the school, we have to have a management plan when we conduct any type of incident coordination at the schools. We use the incident command system, and I don't want to bore you with it because I do that with the school administration at each of the schools, and they get to listen to me give my spiel. But suffice to say, we do have a management plan when there is something going on at the schools. Whether we're doing a drill or we have an actual incident, we manage it the best we can. We have a structure where we utilize a unified command system. It's where the agencies get together to have a jurisdiction at a particular scene, and they work jointly together. We have one unified voice, and we work to try and bring the incident to a safe conclusion. Again, we structure this so that we have a specific command post that we operate at. So if we were to have an incident at the school, we have one spot that we meet at so that everybody can bring the information to us, and we can coordinate how the incident is going to play out. Also, this gives us the opportunity to explain to you about how serious we take this, how serious the students and staff have taken this in each of the schools. When we first started doing it, it was new. People had to get used to doing it, but now the kids, because of all that's going on in the world, take it very, very seriously. And when we have the drills, we noticed this last year, and the superintendent can attest to this, but it's just, you you don't hear a peep in the schools. It's as quiet as can be. When there's a lockdown, we don't hear a thing going on in the schools. It just quiets right down because they're all taking cover. And again, after the drills, we have quite a bit of feedback through the superintendent. We sit and we do a debriefing with the particular principals, and she requires them to give an after-action report. And if there's anything that needs to be corrected, it's done so, and we work to improve what we did that day. Again, it's reality, and the captain can speak more to that. But you know, in looking at just some of these slides and trying to get information when I've done some of the presentations, you know, the active shooter incidences are more prevalent in businesses and schools than they are in other areas. And if you look at that bottom map where it shows mass shootings, I mean, that's how prevalent it is in the country. So to say that we shouldn't be concerned about it and drilling's okay in the school isn't true. You have to take it seriously. We have to drill. We have to prepare the students. Unfortunately, we see it in the news all the time, so we're very serious when we come into the schools and we conduct our drills. Again, we have to acknowledge that, you know, if it wasn't for the parents, you know, understanding what we have to do in the schools, you know, we've had some parents that have been concerned about us going into the schools, but, you know, through education, they understand what we're trying to achieve. The students and the staff are great, and they take it, like I said, very seriously in light of everything that's going on around them. The community supports us as far as the police and fire in our daily missions. So we have great support from the community as a whole. Superintendent for commitment, she's been right there every step of the way with us, and she supports what we're doing. You guys for supporting the school administration and making sure that they have the tools and the resources to do these type of activities in the school also, and to promote safety in the school. Can't say enough about that. And lastly, the fire and police administration, they have been very supportive of us. We're kind of the second tier down from the chiefs, and we have these particular positions that we oversee and we administrate, and we can come into the school and we have the ability to work with everybody and get along with everybody, and we get a lot done when we work together. Acknowledge Bob Griffin, because he's been involved since 1999 when we first started, when he was a teacher at the Falmouth High School, much younger then, and so he's been helping with the school resource officers over the years, and he's helped to develop a lot of the planning that's utilized by the school in daily activities as far as emergency planning is concerned. So that's the fastest I've probably ever given a presentation. I had my timekeeper Craig is over here because he watches out for how I chat. And so I'll turn it over to Captain Smith if you'd like to add.
Sure, I'll add a few things as far as the police perspective. Yes, we do take these very, very seriously, the drills that we conduct. But I want to, put everyone at ease. It is still safe to be in school in this country, especially here in Falmouth. To be involved in a school shooting, your chances are 1 in 7 million to be actually injured in a school shooting. It's up near 1 in 15 million if you actually be killed in a school shooting in this country. So I don't want people out there to think that their kids are at risk at school, but we do have these incidents nationwide, and we best be prepared for them if they were ever to come to Falmouth. So in 1999, Columbine changed everything when Harris and Klebold went into that school and rained terror on those kids. It used to be that we would kind of form up as law enforcement and take a position outside and try to create a perimeter. And in that day, they did that. They used that tactic, and they could hear gunshots inside the school. So that changed the response. Now an active shooter response in a school or anywhere requires law enforcement to go in straight to the threat and try to eliminate the threat. That could be as little as 1, 2 officers, or teams of 2 to 6 officers, but you're not waiting for the special response team to arrive to make sure that they're the most equipped or the best equipped for the situation. Patrol officers that arrive at a school are going into the school to try to eliminate the threat. So in the lockdown drills, we try to change it up. We don't want it to be second period, on a Tuesday every time. We want to kind of, especially now that the staff and the kids have been, they're so good at it, that we, throw little curveballs here and there. I don't want to really go into all the details because I don't want to give them all away. But we try to change it up and test people, test the staff, and in the end, we follow the lockdown process. There are other systems out there. One's called Alice, one's called Run, Hide, and Fight. We believe that this works well in Falmouth, but we've left the critical thinking piece ultimately to the leaders of those classrooms to take care of those children, make them safe, because 60% of these shooting incidents are well over before police even arrive on the scene. So most likely, it's going to be staff and students that are there to try to make themselves as safe as possible and buy some time until the first responding officers can get there. So we try to leave it to the teachers to try to think of their own ways to make their classroom as safe as possible. That's all I have to say.
We have an extensive, comprehensive emergency plan. It isn't just active shooter, it's all sorts of things. It's medical emergencies, it's storms, it's any hazard. It's called all hazard. And our goal is to assure parents, staff, kids, and citizens that we practice this, we've worked on it, we renew it, we go over it, and then once we do these things, we sit down and talk. I can't tell you the change in the relationship between police, fire, and the schools that's occurred over the last 20 years. I've been involved in both for a long time, and there were difficult relationships at that point. We really have a great relationship now. Anybody can call Jeff, or you can call Tim, or Craig, or me, and we'll sit down and work on an issue. So the active shooter is one of the things we are concerned with, but we think of other things as well. And we all sit down and talk about it. What's the best thing? I just sent out a Google Docs to a bunch of people, asking them for their input. What can we change a little bit? I worked on it during the summer. Did some updates on the goals. Deputy Smith's point about after action, that's one of the most critical pieces. We have an after action plan. Nancy instituted that last year. When we do a lockdown, we sit down and we talk about it. It's not a gotcha thing. It's not, we don't go into Nancy's school and say, ha, we got you, you didn't do this. We sit down and talk about it and try and figure out what can be done better and practice it and work on it for the next time. I guess that's about it. Lieutenant O'Malley is director of EMS. EMS is a critical part of all the all hazards plans, and he's worked with us just as Captain Smith and Deputy Smith have done, and it's a great relationship. I can't emphasize that enough. We sit down at the fire station or the police station or whatever and just talk, and there's no egos. Right.
So one of the things, although I'm in charge of the EMS, but one of when we do these drills, not only just the lockdown drills, I mean, the police have actually helped us when we do some of our quarterly fire drills, which we're required to do by law. But one of the other parts of the fire department that always comes to the lockdown drills is fire prevention. Because what I was recommended security-wise may not necessarily fit the fire codes. And some of those things that we found in some of the schools, and some of the schools have idiosyncrasies, is a work around on how to secure a room or in a certain way that would still make it safe in case there was a fire. And it's an integral part, and as I said, it's because of our work on lockdowns together, the police, fire, and the schools, it's enabled us to do so much more in everything else in terms of any other aspect of whether it's from bus accidents to just our regular school inspections. It's very impressive on how in the last few years, I've been part of this last almost 4 years, and the teamwork between the groups has been outstanding.
I'd like to add, we talk about partnerships, but the partnership that we have with the school we just don't say, oh, we've partnered with the school because it's the cool thing to say in 2016. We do that for a reason. We believe that other than the target hardening things that we try to do on the lockdowns as far as, controlling access, locking doors and all that, the biggest thing that's gonna help us as law enforcement is building relationships and building trust with staff and students so that if there's some risky behavior being displayed by one student, whether it's on social media or at the school, someone is more apt to reach out and notify law enforcement that this may be going on. So without that, we'd be missing a huge piece, and I'd like to thank Nancy for being part of that relationship building. It's been a huge success.
And lastly, just, to reemphasize, part of our management, as I stated before, is this incident command system, and we utilize it, as Craig mentioned, at bus accidents, when we have fire alarms at the schools. We always conduct the same management process so that every incident we go to, doesn't matter how big or small it is, we're running it the exact same way because it's been a proven way to manage an incident. And the police, they have a different reaction when they go somewhere. They have to immediately go to the threat. We, as on the fire side, we get there and we evaluate it. We do what we call a size up, where we just take everything in and we develop a plan right away. And we work together to educate one another on what each of us does, so that when we do have an actual incident, regardless of what it is, we come together at the same spot and we manage it. So we want to let everybody know that, we have been, consistently trying to maintain a very strong presence with this command system. And we've been educating the school staff over the last couple of years, where we give presentations. And it's very well received. We have the support from the school administration and from our administration, and we look forward to having these presentations to just let everybody know how committed we are to working on the school safety initiatives.
Any questions?
So, before I ask a question, let me thank you all. I think I speak on behalf of the entire school committee to thank and applaud you for the hard work you and your staffs and your departments are doing. There's nothing that's more important than the safety of our kids. So thank you very much. When the principals do their things, I always ask them a question. So what else do you need? So is there anything else? Is there anything else that the school committee can do to make your efforts even stronger?
Just continue with supporting what we're trying to do to keep the students safe. I think we're in a good place right now. We just want to keep it going.
The parental side of it, probably, letting them know, about what we're going to be doing each year, how we have this focus on school safety through lockdowns and such. That's an important part of it, but I think, it's by word of mouth over the last year or so, it's increased quite a bit, and I don't think we get any negative feedback. You guys might get it more than we do. Nobody calls us up and complains. They complain to you. So I think that we've been doing well in that regard.
Leah, you had a question?
Yeah. So what does the training look like for staff? And is there training for students too in this?
In the lockdown itself?
Well, in kind of understanding the
staff,
systems in place, yeah.
We've done the high school, we've done Lawrence School. Next on tap will be the Morse Pond School. And what we did at the faculty meeting, Captain Smith and Deputy Smith and I did a PowerPoint and did it in such a way that we could pause between the issues as we went along, so there'd be questions. And there are always a lot of questions. And one of the great things about having Craig as part of it, a lot of people have questions about medical issues during a lockdown. The kids could be in a room for a long, long time. There might be a student with diabetes, there might be a student who has a seizure. Well, what do? We talk about those things with the faculty. Each school this year has a safety committee. And in the safety committee, we sit down and talk about what do the teachers see, what do the staff aides see, what does the cafeteria staff think? Because school safety isn't just a teacher issue. There's an after-school, the kids club programs have kids at schools till 5:30. And that's one of my goals this year, is to try and work with those people, the staff members there. How do they communicate with us? Many times the school secretarial staff is gone, and they're still there with kids in the building. So we're gonna try and work on that so that they can communicate and they know what they do. Nancy and I have walked around Moulton Hall, figured safe spots, where can the kids go, talk to the custodians, so that there's a handle on what's going on. But everybody's there, every person participates. All staff members can call a lockdown. If they see something, a custodian sees something, he can call the office and say, put the school in lockdown. It isn't just teachers, it's the entire staff.
Other questions? Let's go down the line. Sylvia.
Has there been an analysis done of all the buildings in regards to ensuring that each classroom is able to, a teacher is able to barricade the room or lock, secondary locks on the doors, etc., or working locks, things of that nature? Is that done on a yearly basis or a periodic basis?
It's done every time we lock down.
Okay.
Every time we lock down, we now go in with maps and check off and say, yep, we got this room, this door didn't lock.
Awesome.
And before we even leave the building, we sit down with the head custodian, we sit down with Nancy, we sit down with the principal, and all of us say, this is what we found, and let's work on it. Then we follow up on it.
Wonderful.
So at Lawrence, for example, last year we had a snow blower being stored inside the school. There was just no space. By the end of the week, there was a shed out there, and the snow blower was already in the shed. So we really stay on it.
Awesome. And one other question, if a teacher decides that the best situation entails getting her kids out of the classroom, are the kids and the teachers trained in an alternative site to run to?
We have off-site locations. I'm not going to say where they are.
Right, exactly.
But every school has a location where the kids will go and meet. If there's staff out on the playground, they will go to that location. They won't come back in the building. There are strobe lights on the outside of the buildings, so that if there's a lockdown that's apparent to the staff outside, they won't come in. They'll go to that location.
An active shooter situation is very fluid. We don't want to make it a cookie cutter approach to it, so you have to leave some room open for critical decision making.
Great, thank you.
Sharon, could you flip the light on?
Yes, I can.
Bill, you have a question?
Yes, after the lockdown, thank you, yes, some really good questions. After the lockdown, how many police or fire department go into the building and actually observe what has occurred? And just a curiosity.
So with the police department, we assign personnel to the drill based on the size of the school.
Okay.
In an actual event, it's just going to determine who's on duty and who's going to the scene.
Okay.
But what we try to do in the police department as well is get as many different officers to experience the lockdown, because you never know who's going to be working if that day ever comes. So you don't want it to just be day shift officers that experience a lockdown drill and what it entails. You want to bring in other officers that are working overtime shifts. So anytime I see someone new that I haven't seen on a lockdown, I'm grabbing them, so we're going. So they get familiar with the school layout,
Exactly.
the whole way that the whole process works.
And the same thing with the fire department, is Craig alluded to, our fire prevention division will come in with us also. And at the same time we're doing the lockdown, they're also looking at the life safety aspect of doors or anything that could impede egress from the school. So we address that at the same time. It gives us a good opportunity because the school's in operation. I also will bring our shift commanders over who are responsible, as the captain stated, that might be on during a particular shift, because we don't have a set pattern and schedule for this. But the one thing that each school has is each school has a box that's attached to the school that has all the keys to the school. fire department's the only one that has the availability of getting into that.
Right.
So this joint participation allows us, if something is to happen, we get there and we can get access to these keys right away because nobody's opening the door for us anyways. So
Understood.
we open it ourselves. In Columbine, for example, when that tragedy started to unfold, it was the fire department that got notified first because they were setting devices off in the school. And typically that's what we've seen in other cases. The fire department was notified first. So it only makes sense that we work together in this fashion.
I also like the fact that you're trying to train after school with activities, groups, organizations, because secretaries are gone. And there's a need for those people to know procedures and protocol and things of that nature.
It's everybody, it's custodians,
Yes,
it's kitchen
exactly,
staff, it's
exactly.
after-school staff,
Students.
Yes.
students.
And last but not least, I was a principal in Pennsylvania at a school of just under 3,000 high school kids. And the communication between the school and the community, police, fire, is just so critical. And when you mentioned Columbine, the first thing I wrote on the top of my list was Cleveland and Harris. So, those things are embedded. If you're an educator, and obviously you're involved with law enforcement and safety, those things are embedded for life in you. And so you look at everything, you look at everything as those are possibilities, and we need to prevent anything of that nature. So I really appreciate your efforts, your communications, your working with the schools, because that interaction is so critical, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
More questions, Walter?
I don't mean to get too political on this, but does it concern you and does it affect your long-term planning with the large number of these Middle Eastern refugees that are coming into the country, which the FBI claims they don't have the system to vet all of them? I just read in the Cape Cod Times today, like 900 of them have come to Massachusetts. Is that a heightened concern in terms of potential terrorist activity at a school?
We get terrorist briefings through the FBI, but when it comes to active shooter, doesn't matter where they come from or who they are, we're responding the same no matter what. I mean, does it increase the chances? Maybe. But you never know who that person's going to be. You look at the statistics throughout the country, more often than not, 9 out of 10 times, it's going to most likely be a student from that school, especially in the higher grades.
Yeah. Well, my concern is we're seeing these incidents not here, but in other parts of the country. And my concern is, as more of these people come in, they're going to be infiltrated by potential problem people. And I didn't know if that would concern you all, and if it's something that...
That's be a general heightened awareness, not just for schools.
Other questions? John?
Just I want to also thank you all for your help in keeping the kids safe. And I'm actually reticent about asking any specific questions because it's sort of a catch-22 with the open meeting law, and but yet we want to communicate with the town and whatnot. But in lieu of that, I would suggest that we have a mechanism that we could all reach out to either Nancy or Alan with any kind of suggestions or questions that we might have that would keep the gray area of the security, not getting too specific, but then if we have suggestions, I would hope that would be a mechanism that we could use.
And I would share them with Bob and the group.
We're actually meeting next week.
Great.
Sit down and go, just toss out all sorts of things, plan lockdowns and air concerns. And that's the great thing. We sit down, we talk about it. We're just 5 or 6 individuals in the room, and when we all think together.
Great.
Other questions? Any questions from the audience? Gentlemen, thank you again so much for all your hard work.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for keeping them safe.
Next item on the agenda is the approval of the Lawrence Innovation School renewal. Tom, I believe that's you.
Sharon. Yes.
for having us.
Thanks for coming.
Try and go a little quick here. We actually have a script that we're going to try and stick to because this is a very broad subject. As people are aware of the Innovation School Plan and have seen it, know. And the conversation can go a number of different directions, so we actually are going to try and stick with it. It'll help get everyone a better understanding of what we're trying to do here. So, again, thanks for having us. We're proud to represent the Lawrence School and our Innovation School Renewal Committee. We had a great 5th year of the plan last year, and we're just going to share some things about where we're going with the plan, or where we hope to go with the plan, rather. And my name's Tom Bushy. I'm the principal at Lawrence.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Vieira, assistant principal at Lawrence School. I'm going to provide a little brief history, as I had the pleasure of working with Nancy Taylor, principal of Lawrence School at the time, with the original Innovation School Plan. So in 2011-12, school year 11-12, was our first year that we opened as an innovation school. And at that point, we had a very extensive, lengthy document that put out a very wide range of supports and ideas that we had in place for our students that would provide the opportunity to give the school the autonomy and flexibility in the number of areas of curriculum, staffing, budget, scheduling, professional development, and district policies. So we took on all of those areas and identified some goals and targeted initiatives under each of those pieces. But part of that, we also stuck to 4 key priorities. And those key priorities we are carrying over into our second renewal document. So those priorities are in the area of increasing academic achievement for all students and reduction of achievement gaps with a strong focus on literacy and technology integration across the curriculum. Boosting community participation and engagement for learning with all students. Student, family, and community partnerships that enrich learning opportunities for all students. And finally, professional development and distributive leadership opportunities that play with our, put a light on our teachers and their essential role in engaging the students and having their academic success achievement.
It is a very brief history, so fast forward 4 years. Things went well at Lawrence, and it was around, I think it was 2013, it was before my time here. Lawrence earned a level 1 acknowledgement, and it can be attributed to the supports that were put in place and the hard work of the students and the staff every day for the first few years of the plan. I'm going to leave that piece alone because I think it's coming up later tonight from Zach and Sonia's office about accountability data.
So last year in the fall, we entered our 5th and final year of our original plan. And we started the fall off by polling the faculty and overwhelmingly received support to proceed with a renewal application for a new innovation plan. So we started that process by reaching out to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Our point of contact there is Shay Edmonds, in conversations with Superintendent Taylor, and began to enroll some stakeholders in the new development of a renewal process that included teachers, parents, community members, school council members, and administrators. And then in the spring, we developed a draft of a document and held a public forum to talk about our lasting initiatives and also identify some of our priorities that we have identified to move forward with. So in that process, it's been an ongoing conversation. It's still evolving, but we're ready to go for another 5 years.
An overview of some of the lasting initiatives that we call attention to just through our daily work is our commitment to a focus on literacy work across the subjects. The Literacy Committee is in its 6th year this year, of course, and they didn't wait for Innovation School approval. We already met on Saturday, and that work is moving forward. The Dress for Success initiative is something that continues to be widely supported by the staff. The town meeting model for students, which, by the way, I am formally inviting anyone here to come and attend our town meeting on Friday at 8:30. The kids are actually going to be talking about or debating school start time, so it's applicable to what we're doing. It is going to be a non-binding article, though. So, they don't actually get to make the decision, but we can see where they stand on that. Also, the teaching schedule just continues to allow for enrichment opportunities and additional supports, and of course, professional development time that's embedded in the regular schedule, and the teachers continue to benefit from that time they have to meet, collaborate, and develop plans. And I'll leave that for now.
Very good. So what I'd like to do is just kind of highlight some key initiatives that we have identified for the renewal process. First being an advisor-advisee program. Again, something that was part of the original document, but we're really trying to breathe a little bit more life in this year, in this new process. And it's really making sure that we can provide a smaller group opportunity for students to connect with staff in a different way, to have some guidance on academics, social, emotional well-beings of students. We've done a little bit of piloting of some programs at school of the smaller group connections, but again, we're thinking that that may be a model that we can continue, but we would like to breathe new life into that. We've also identified a promotion or credit guideline, and we have developed this document that assigns some credits for students to be able to get some guidance on how they're progressing and meeting expectations throughout their schooling. It's not binding of any sort of thing like the high school, but it puts a little practice and foresight to that high school process for the credit policy. And then finally, we are looking at some kind of alternative program, education program to we've identified some students that are disengaged academically, and school may need to look a little bit different for them. So that is an area that we're continuing to try to foster some other partnerships in the community, looking at some possible pre-apprenticeships within our school, outside of the school, but again, just kind of looking at academic and education a little bit differently.
So this is the final step in the renewal process, and there's no impact on collective bargaining for the staff, so we simply need a majority of school committee approval to continue as an innovation school, and if approved, we can, if not approved, we can reconvene the renewal team and make revisions and submit at a later date with another vote. But tonight, we do seek your approval so we can continue the hard work we started and maintain our status as an innovation school for the next 5 years.
Questions for Tom and Rebecca? Leah?
Well, I'm glad you brought up the advisor-advisee program, because that sounds like a fabulous way to really support students. And it looks like all staff would be involved in that, is that right?
Yeah, that's what we would like to eventually get to, that model where we could have everyone engaged.
And would the idea be that they would be looping with those students, so that 2 years that they'd be supporting those students, or would there be different?
Yeah, it could be.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be tied. It doesn't have to be tied to the team structure. So yes, that could definitely be something that would work out for them.
Yeah.
I have another comment just on this draft here. So it looks like a school committee member is a part of the school council, and so this probably was the way it looked 5 years ago, right? And so this would need to be amended. Eight.
Unless you want a school committee person to be part of your school council.
The distributive leadership document. Yeah, I think that was a rollover from before, and with a new superintendent,
right.
I think we need to take her advisement on that as well.
And this is a document that was put together for your view, so this group can see it without having to tease out the 72-page innovation school plan. So, thank you for drawing attention.
Other questions? John?
A question, this might be an obvious question that maybe I should know, but I don't, so I'm going to ask you. What would be the alternative, so if you're not an innovation school, what would be the alternative of like a scenario that we could measure against each other?
Well, the innovation school plan really technically serves as the school improvement plan. We've done things a little bit differently here in my experience, as much as I'm going to be back here next week presenting an improvement plan, which I'm happy to do. The As far as if we didn't continue on as an innovation school, I think there are some things that we may do right now that we would have to take a look at whether we can continue to do them. Some things that the community might embrace at this point because we're an innovation school, they might not be supportive of if we were not. For example, the Dress for Success initiative. There may be some staff situations as far as the time they have for common planning in the schedule, professional development time. That may be something that we have to adjust, and I think it would be a loss, but it certainly wouldn't stop us from doing what we do every day to try and push the kids forward.
So like the team breakout of the different teams and whatnot would still be the same thing in the other scenario, or is that a key component, the team to this?
I don't think teaming is tied to the innovation school plan.
No, but when Lawrence became an innovation school, and Rebecca, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the pieces we really wanted was some autonomy in terms of scheduling, in terms of teacher schedules every day to increase student support. So we were able to play with teacher schedules to create a math lab, to create a reading lab, and technically could we do that if we weren't an innovation school? Maybe not. You may have to go back to the 5-1-1. So we were able to play with that a little bit. We were able to think about student behavior and introduce the Dress for Success, which was a very difficult piece of the plan to get approved and to move forward on, and has been incredibly successful. And the way we were able to do that was to sort of remove ourselves just a little bit from the district. You're still held accountable from the district, but you have more autonomy as an innovation school. So they basically give you the right to be a little bit more creative as long as you have buy-in from your staff. You have to have a certain vote from your staff. The school committee had to approve it. It was a very big deal. But they have more autonomy than any other school in the district to do what they, as educators, feel is best for kids.
Okay, that's what I'm just trying to get a handle on. So
Right. How's it different?
How's it different? And if it is the case that we've discussed, come to the conclusion after 5 years that it's a benefit, because I do like the dynamic there, and I have a child in Lawrence now, and I had one prior, and I'll have one coming too as well. I'm very happy with it. But just, so then are we going to then transpose this to the other schools if it is successful? And then, or is there some kind of a thought process of, you know, the elementary, you want to have a little more central leadership? And I don't know, I mean, just from...
It's a good question.
You know, because I can't, you know, to understand that, I have to ask that, and then I can say, okay, yeah, let's move forward with it. Any thoughts on that of the other schools? Or?
That's a principal's decision.
Okay.
That if they wanted to go that route, they certainly could.
Other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
If there are no other questions, can I get a motion to approve the Lawrence Innovation School renewal plan?
I'll make a motion to approve the renewal plan. Very, very impressive plan you put together.
Thank you.
With the change on the, with the change
Yes,
on
the one
page 8.
change.
The one change to the.
Well, this is,
to the
I think this is just a,
leadership model.
This is really just kind of clip notes for you.
Oh, okay.
We'll adjust the graphic, definitely.
is the full plan someplace that if anybody wants to access it, they can come?
Yes, it's on the school website.
Great, thank you. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Any questions from the audience? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is a vote to accept a $50,000 grant from the Falmouth Road Race to the Lawrence School for dugout and scoreboard.
Come back to the table.
On my way.
I can speak a little bit to this if...
Go right ahead.
So Josh Oliver, who's a phys ed teacher at Morse Pond, is extremely invested in Falmouth education, and also extremely invested in Falmouth youth sports. So he applied for a Falmouth Road Race grant to get a number of improvements on the ball field at Lawrence School. And it was, correct me if I'm wrong, it was his first time doing one of these grant applications. He learned a lot through the process, and the road race rewarded him with a portion of what he requested. 50,000 is a significant amount, if you ask me. But apparently he, as he improves his grant writing skills and shooting stars, the sky might be the limit. We'll see. So he has been awarded 50,000 specifically to upgrade the dugouts and to put a scoreboard in. One of the things that comes with those improvements is just us as a school and as a district ensuring that field is going to be open to anybody who likes to use it. Of course, the phys ed classes use it during the day, but not just available to baseball programs, but also to softball programs and any other community groups that find the need to get out of the rain or heat or foul balls, whatever comes with protections that the dugout provides, and use a scoreboard. And sorry, I'm talking for you.
That's okay. Sorry I'm late, everybody. I just came up the Little League field and they're still playing, and I'm the head coach, so I had to run out of there. But,
Are you winning, Coach?
we were up and it was getting close. So it was a little nerve-wracking. I'm sorry. So what I missed?
I think I did an all right job. Not certain.
I can just say, I missed this whole thing, but really excited about this grant opportunity. Been coaching down that field for over 10 years. My number one concern is safety. It's if you've been down at the Lawrence School field, you're talking, if you're batting at home plate, I'm hitting right here. Our dugouts are pretty much where that wall is, which does not give anybody a lot of time as far as a foul ball goes. So it needs the improvement for safety overall. We're excited because the way we see it is that any kid can use that facility. The phys ed classes will be using it anyway during the day. Girls softball, my daughter's team, practiced down there last year a little bit. And we see it's going to be a big improvement. But mainly, safety is the biggest thing. I had a little girl that her parents are both teachers here, and her brother was playing, and she was watching the game about 5 feet away from home plate, and a foul ball hit her right in the forehead, probably about 8 years ago. And I really don't want to see that happen again. So with the addition of the dugouts, working with the DPW and installing the new backstop and the new fencing, it's going to completely change that facility and make it much safer for kids overall. The addition of a scoreboard is going to be a huge benefit to us. Can't tell you how many times we have parents coming over asking, what's the score? And they're going to watch a game and they have no idea. So, we're really thankful for the road race to take a look at this grant and award it, and I'm excited about it.
My name is Carl Cavosa. I'm the Vice President of the Road Race. I also sit on the grant committee. Josh wrote the grant, and I have a lot of experience coaching at that field. I've had 2 boys come through the baseball program through AAU, and some of the things we've seen with some innovation with baseball is the bats. These kids are all using composite bats now. They're not using wood bats like when I was younger. And the bat speed that the kids are generating, the ball's coming off the bat over 100 miles an hour. So you can see in Major League Baseball now how they have these pitchers getting hit, and they're wearing these foam inserts in their hats now because of head injuries. And they're using wood in Major League Baseball. So our kids at 13 and 14 are generating bat speeds that they're generating in Major League Baseball. We had a radar gun on a 14-year-old kid this weekend. He generated a bat speed of over 100 miles an hour. That's phenomenal. That ball's going to come off the bat at 110 or 120 miles an hour. So if you're within 25 feet of that, you don't have, a long time to react to a foul ball. And we've seen it not just with the kids in the dugouts, but the way that home plate is there, the field was probably, the backstop was probably built in the 50s. And it was wood bats back then, and the balls weren't traveling the way they are today. So the whole system down there, from home plate to the dugouts to the backstop and the fence, I can stand here, the batter's there, and the fence is only this high. So kids are standing there, and this is the part that's exposed. And so when we've had our AAU games down there, we've had the similar situation as Josh, where the ball's coming off the bat, and it's a little bit scary. So when I saw grant that Josh wrote, I said, this isn't just a aesthetics thing, this is a safety issue, and I knew the community preservation funds granted some money for the backstop, so we're kind of partnering with them to make this project not just a little bit of a project, but to redo the whole system there with the dugouts, the backstop, the fencing going to the dugouts, and to do a remote scoreboard. So I think it's a, you know, it's a credit to Josh to come up with the idea and write the grant. He did a good job. I know there's a ton of projects in town that maybe are ahead of this project or maybe are more important than this project for other people, but, you know, the grant committee is there and will accept grants from wherever, whomever. And the ones that come in that we think have done a good job and show a need and we think are worthwhile, the road race will fund, you know, and this was something that we thought was worthwhile. You know, it's a credit to Tom and Josh for putting it together and getting it all worked out. Hopefully we can get it approved through the school committee and move forward and build the dugouts and have something that'll last there for years and years to come. You know, hopefully it'll be there for 40 or 50 years.
Questions, Walter?
It doesn't have anything to do with the approval on this, which is good. But just out of curiosity, in your terms of longer-term plan and grants, is there any plan to make that a more conventional infield with grass and then a more, instead of the way it's laid out now? Which I think would make it a better field.
I think Josh originally had asked for it to be a turf field, and which would let any sport play there. I mean, you could do soccer stuff there and everything. And of course, it takes away the maintenance and the grading and a lot of the year-round stuff. That didn't get approved because the dollar value of it was a little higher than the road race wanted to bite off at that time. That may be something in the future that, you know, gets reapplied for and happens. But as far as the turf, and what happens is when you do grass and infield, then you can't play softball on it, and there are some other things that can't happen.
Isn't there another softball field sort of next to it?
There is a softball field out in the back. The other issue, honestly, is when you put grass on a baseball field, which I'm a big proponent, I love the grass fields, they're great, but when in the spring, when everything's wet, there's a lot of fields we can't play on. This field, all the AAU teams, the varsity, the JV, they can all go there and practice and play because it's a stone dust infield. So it just needs to be scraped up and graded and usually a little bit of speedy drive. But the grass infields, because they're so mushy and wet right after the frost is gone, the kids can't use them. So this isn't a bad situation. The field's not the best, but it's not as bad as it could be. We are going to take up the grass in front of the dugouts just to make it uniform, because that's another issue. A catcher goes up for a fly ball, he's looking up and he's running and he's going over stone dust and grass and stone dust and grass. So we're going to make it all nice and level and make it much more playable.
Other questions? Questions from the audience?
Oh, Susan has a
No.
question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Susan.
No, I just wanted to move approval to accept the $50,000 grant.
I'll second.
With thanks.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great
Good job, Josh.
Great job.
Well done.
The next item is to vote to approve the signage on the scoreboard to recognize the road race.
You need us to stick around for that?
Well, if somebody could explain what the signage is going to look like, that would be helpful.
Sorry.
One of the things that the Falmouth Road Race is, you know, most of you know, it's been here for 40 years. In the early stages of the road race, we did some things very quietly, you know, and even board members, as board members came onto the road race, we didn't know we did them. Because, you know, as this board moves and the next board comes, you know, what's the history? And the track at the high school was something that came up, you know, and they said, you know, geez, did we originally build that? What, you know, who paid for that? You know, and all that kind of stuff. So one of the things that we want the community to know, and we're not trying to put it in anyone's face, we want them to understand we're giving back to this community. And in the way that we're giving back, we're not trying to advertise for the road race. That's not what this is about. This is more about our kids, your kids, the grandkids going there and saying, wow, the road race did give that to the school, or the road race did do that for the this field or that field. You know, certainly on the dugouts, there won't be anything. There won't be anything on the fence. There's not gonna be anything on the infield. Some sort of thing on the scoreboard is what we're asking for. It's not a deal breaker for us. You know, if the school's like, wow, we don't want it. It's really not that important to us. It's more of an issue of we've given back to the community in a lot of ways, and people don't see it. And we'd like them to recognize the fact when they're at these events that, hey, the road race did that. And that's something that I can say, geez, I gotta put up with traffic that day. And that's a good reason why, because they do give back to the community.
So you were very generous in contributing toward the new floor at the high school gym. And if I remember correctly, there's just a small bit of signage there. Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, some sort of logo or signage that's on the scoreboard. I think,
I actually have a copy of the scoreboard quote. One of them.
Go around it.
Yep, you pass it around. And I asked them to include a sign. They were able to actually go on the Falmouth Road Race website, come up with the logo, and put something together. So that's just an example of what it might look like.
and I would say this to the board, you know, I'm here as Kyle Cavosa. I also hold that position as the vice president of the road race. So as Kyle Cavosa, the resident with kids in the school, I'd like to say this. Every field that I go to, whether it's the girls softball field, the field hockey field, the soccer field. Hey coach, what's the score? Hey coach, does anybody know the score? I just got here. Oh, my wife, honey, what's the score? 1-0. We don't know. It's great not to keep score sometimes, right? But sometimes it's good to know the score. And, you know, at the high school and varsity level, and traveling with the kids now, you know, we're just down in Nauset. Where was the football team the other day? Marshfield. The complex there is absolutely beautiful. Scoreboard, holy cow. Home stands, away stands, concession stands, beautiful turf, track. I mean, it was beautiful. It was like, yeah, it was like,
than ours.
It was like a college coliseum, right?
Yep.
So there are ways that we can get money into these programs and put these things and get these things done. You know, we did it at the Little League. We did it at the Little League field. We have 3 beautiful scoreboards at the Little League field. These kids are 8 to 12. We probably shouldn't be keeping score, right? And here we are at the varsity football team. You know, I'm at the varsity baseball game looking around going, are you kidding me? We have no scoreboard. So I think those things need to really be something that we take some pride in the community. And I'd like to, as one of the things the road race being able to give back is some of these things maybe can be done through the road race, you know, or through private people in the community. That's what we did at Little League. We went to private people and said, hey, would you be interested? Banks, stuff like that. And they love the idea if they get some recognition, you know. And we're not, that sign that you see there, we didn't approve that or we didn't design that. That was just Josh's idea, and so we haven't even seen it. We just asked for some recognition on the sign, and whatever, and that's the same thing that happened with the Commodores.
Yep.
We never saw it, we never approved it. It happened, and then we got killed for it in the newspaper. We never approved that, and we didn't ask them for 10-inch letters. You know, that wasn't what we asked for.
Would you like to come back to us with a proposal for what you would like to see? I mean,
to be honest with you, I'd like to start digging tomorrow. This thing should be done in 2 weeks. You guys tell us what you want, and that's what we'll do. There's no, for me, there's no, you know, if it's just a smaller sign on there and it's 4-inch or 3-inch letters, I'm fine.
Is there a policy?
There is a policy, as I recall, in regards to naming of facilities. But I personally have no objection to adding to a small portion on the sign saying donated by Falmouth Road, because then it's not naming it, but it's giving recognition.
Yeah, we don't want to name the field. I think the field being Lawrence Field, and I think that's great. You know, we don't want it to be, you know, because every field in town will be named Road Race Field after a field.
So my only concern here is the way this is written, vote to approve the signage. So I'm hesitant to have a vote to approve the signage when we don't know what the signage looks like. So I don't think that there's, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's any objection to that. But what I'm going to ask is maybe we could hold that for a week or so. Absolutely proceed in terms of the dugouts and everything you want, and come back, you or work together, let's come up with what the signage would actually look like.
Can we do this sign in 3-inch letters with 10-inch circles? So 3-inch letters, 10-inch circles, 10 inches.
I'll leave it to the committee.
And we'll write donated by.
That's what I would like.
That's
That's what I would like.
Because we do have a policy in place in regards to naming, and that would be in violation of naming.
Right.
I can get in contact with this company and have them make that up, and I can pass it along to somebody to take a look.
We have a meeting next week.
Sure.
Perfect.
And I'll be here too.
So we haven't, all I'm saying is just hold it for a week. By all means, go ahead with, with the
Start your
construction.
digging.
And bring it back to us next week, just so we have something to look at and say, yeah, that's what it's gonna be. And and if the road race wants to, chime in to it, you obviously should.
Yeah, no, I think, like I said, the road race, our thing is we want people 5, 10, 12 years from now to be able to look at it and say, oh, the road race did give that, and your kids and our kids can see that.
Right, so let's hold that and we'll vote on that next week.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, moving along, next is the vote on the FHS Spring Instrumental Trip to Chicago. Excuse me.
That's a tough act to follow. I'd like to go on the record for saying if the road race would like to donate all of our musical equipment, no problem with that.
Start writing that grant.
That's right. They've actually been very good to us as well, actually. Hello, my name is Steve Edwards. I'm the Fine Arts Department Head for the entire district, K-12. And I'd like to make introductions here. This is our new band director at Falmouth High School, Kayla Peard, and a band parent, a longtime band parent, and our trip advisor and escort on trips, Wendy Payne. Thank you for giving us this opportunity. We're looking for approval for this coming trip to Chicago, which would be held in April over April break. Essentially, just to give everyone a time frame and to be clear, students would go on vacation, and then we would offer this trip the Thursday in vacation to that Sunday, and kids would go back to school on Monday. So, did you all get a copy of the proposal? Okay, great. So essentially, I just want to point out some of the bigger items here that we're very excited about. I should mention, first off, the payments kids make all go towards everything you see in here, but also some things that you might not see, maybe take for granted. For example, travel to and from Falmouth High School to the airport. We take school buses to save on that cost. We'll be going to Providence, Rhode Island to catch the flight, and flying out of Providence heading for Chicago. Once we get to Chicago, the kids are picked up with coach buses. And the coach buses travel around Chicago for us and take us to all the various sites that you see here. Starting with the Bubba Gub Shrimp Company, the Holiday Inn Elk Grove Hotel, the Spirit of Chicago Dance Cruise, Panera Bread Company, festivals of music, the competition that the kids will be performing in, the Hard Rock Cafe, Chicago City Tour, the 360 Chicago Tour, the Museum of Science and Industry, the awards ceremony, my favorite, the Chicago Symphony featuring Beethoven. I want you to know that I feel very strongly when our students in Falmouth participate in a music trip, the experiences that they have on that trip should be musically oriented. They should be musically educational. And I believe so strongly in that I often push the travel agencies that have helped us in that way. And I said, I don't want to just go to something that everybody goes to. Like there was one idea that we should go to Wrigley Field. Don't get me wrong, I've been to Wrigley Field, and being a big baseball fan, I can tell you that's a great experience. But it has nothing to do necessarily with our program. And I feel very strongly that the kids should instead be going to see the Chicago Symphony or a musical, or maybe in Chicago a blues festival or something like that. So I just want you to know a great deal of care was taken when we were setting up this itinerary. And I feel that with potentially 65 to 80 students going, I don't know if any one of us for this price tag could afford to do what's jammed into this schedule for ourselves. And so I welcome any questions, but I just want you to know again, we've taken a lot of time and care, considerations for all of our students, and we encourage all of our kids to go. If there's a financial need, they're asked to fill out a form with the Band Parent Association, and they can do that anonymously. But ultimately, we do look for some evidence that perhaps the family might be in some financial distress. We would not turn a kid away. We offer scholarship and support anyone that wants to go on these trips. Are there any questions?
Questions? Walter?
So is there an unlimited number of students that can go, depending on who wants to go? Or
Absolutely. In fact, the more that go, the lower the price tag.
Okay.
So you may see here, based on 65 paying students at $4 a room, which is essentially what we try to achieve, it's $11.91.
Okay.
But at 80 paying students, that price has come down.
Yeah.
So we're hoping that we'll end up somewhere around 95, to be honest with you, and that price will come down even a little further.
And you could tie the take me out to the ball game thing to get to Wrigley Field.
we could. We could.
Yes.
Other questions?
Walter stole my line. Yes.
7:30.
Well, now we're gonna make you sing.
I'll put a motion after approval.
Can I get a second?
A second.
Any further discussion?
Excellent.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Have a great trip.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited about that. I'm not sure if I'm on the agenda for the next item. I just wanted to share some great news about the art project. I don't know if you have that. Oh, wonderful. While we're bringing that up, it'll be real quick. I just want to mention that about 4 years ago, the Falmouth Graphic Arts classes started creating mural installations at Falmouth High School, and now the work with the graphics department, studio art, and ceramics classes, we've filled the hallways with art, and it's all created by students. More recently, in 2015, we sent our art teachers to a conference at the Museum of Fine Arts for some professional development with Susie Fonda, and they had an opportunity to look at a mural that had been created there. They were inspired, brought that inspiration back to our schools and our kids, and created, through the funding of the Falmouth Education Foundation grant, these murals. Oh, they're not up yet.
I know.
That's okay.
I'm not sure where they are.
Okay. Then let me put it to you this way. First off, there was an article that came out last Friday, but unfortunately, I don't think there were any images of what happened at Gus Canty. But this particular grant offered us an opportunity to put the murals that kids created in every single building in Falmouth Public Schools through our art students in every single building, and with the idea of motion, design these murals. These murals are about 3 feet by 4 feet high, and they are now installed on the second floor of the Gus Canty Recreation Center. The reason they are there is because we found out through some research that thousands and thousands of people, community members, travel through the hallways of the rec center throughout the course of a year. And the art department and myself felt it was really important to reach out to our community, be a part of our community, and show off what our kids can do. So I invite you to the rec center. I guess it's not gonna.
Well, they are.
Oh, they're dark. Well, there's Jane Baker with her kids' work. Again, it's motion, so there's a bunch of beetles moving around. And I don't know if they can. No?
Oh, yeah, no.
John? No, there's Corinne. That's actually a really cool mural. If you go up to it, you can spin it. It'll actually move, so the motion is kind of neat, and it moves in a spiral. And then here's Karen Ferris with Lawrence School, and that's more of a 3D image. The tree is actually coming off, and you can see the leaves are falling. And who else do we have? Pretty much everyone up there. Marissa Rapetta with the 7th grade art mural board. I got in a lot of trouble because we actually hung it upside down by accident, and then we fixed it immediately. And there's Amy Macetta from Morris Pond. We are going to have plaques up next to every single piece explaining what school it comes from. They're just not installed yet. So if you get there and you're wondering, well, who's this who? Forgive us while we're still installing that information. But there's also a plaque going up explaining what I started to talk about with regards to where this came from, the history of it, John Holliday's involvement with the graphics classes. And I think it's a really nice addition to the rec center, and the executive board and the people that work at the rec center seem to think so as well. Are there any questions?
Any questions?
That's great.
Beautiful.
They're really great.
We're very excited. I'm very proud of it.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the Pride Survey presentation by Patricia, and I would butcher your last name, so I'm not even going to try.
Costas. Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Patty Mitro-Costas. I'm the Director of Prevention for Gosnell. Thank you for having me here tonight. And in our business, particularly of late, we see a lot of sadness, not a lot of good news, but I'm here tonight with very, very encouraging news. For those of you that don't know, just a little bit of history, because I have 10 minutes and I really will stick to that. In 2008, the town of Falmouth was awarded a drug-free communities grant, which is a 5-year, $650,000 grant that looks at reducing youth substance abuse based on community involvement of 12 sectors. Just looking at bringing folks together in a community coalition model, which the grant in this town was very, very successful. And 2 years ago when that grant ended, we joined forces with Gosnell on Cape Cod, and the partnership is now a program of Gosnell. And we created a prevention division based on that model. And over the last couple of years, we've tried to spread that model throughout the region on the Cape. Prevention is really difficult to quantify and to justify because it's very difficult to measure. It's a very slow process, it's a very slow burn. Does it really work? I mean, we see it working in physical medicine, but does it really work on the mental health side? Does it work in drug abuse, cigarettes and such? And we know it does, the research shows it does, but locally it's difficult to define. It's difficult to define as a region. But here in Falmouth, as part of the Drug-Free Communities Grant, one of the first steps is to conduct an assessment. And we used in 2008 and over the course of an 8-year period, 4 times, so every 2 years, we used the Communities That Care survey by the Pride Company, which is a survey that measures risk and protective factors against drug and alcohol use and other risky behaviors. I do have a copy of the survey I can leave with you if anybody wants to see it. This is in your package of the summary of the results. But what I'd like to say is that, first of all, thank you to the Falmouth schools. You're the only district on the Cape that's done this. The only one that I'm aware of actually in Massachusetts that's done it for these 8 years. It's a credit to the administration here, to the principals that cooperated. Last spring we went into the schools. The survey is pretty extensive. It's about 150 questions. We started out by meeting with Nancy, who was familiar with it back from her days at Lawrence. So it's a cooperative effort of the school principals and the staff, the teachers at Lawrence and at the high school. And the results are nothing short of front page news for those that didn't see the Cape Cod Times. This was the Cape Cod Times. Now I need my glasses. I've turned into one of those people that looks for my glasses. August 18th, this was the front page of the Cape Cod Times, which again is not something that we see often at all in our business. So again, be certainly happy to leave that and pass it around. Also the front page of the Falmouth Enterprise. And again, the results, you have the reports, you can certainly read them for yourself in measuring risk and protective factors against drug and alcohol use. But what I've done here is, and all the kids at the 8th grade at Lawrence High School, it was just the 8th grade surveyed, and 9 through 12 at the high school. And what it measures is use rates of drugs and alcohol, but it also measures what we call risk and protective factors. This is a summary, the full report I will send to Nancy so she can pass it along to the school committee. It's really extensive. Again, it measures factors like things that are within your school. How safe do kids feel? How connected are they to rewards within the school system? How are our pro-social activities connected to the reduction of use of alcohol and drugs? And then what are factors that put our kids at risk? What are the community norms surrounding drug and alcohol use, surrounding firearms, bullying, and many, many other factors that are within the survey? What I can highlight for you are the alcohol use rates that overall at Falmouth High School in grades 9 through 12 in 2011 were at 43.3%, and in 2015 are down to 23% of students reporting using alcohol in the last 30 days. That is an incredible reduction. And that is a credit to the school system, first and foremost, the administration, the parents, the teachers, all the work they've done on drug and alcohol education, safety, protection of the students, and really looking at it as a place not to just teach reading, writing, arithmetic, all the basics, but how do we help kids learn better? How do we take away some of these risk factors? And I think the school department has done a fantastic job of that. And even in these troubling times of the medical marijuana passing, of looking at the ballot question number 4 in November, the possible legalization of marijuana, there's still been almost a 10% reduction in use at Falmouth High School since 2011. Lifetime prescription drug use is down almost 4%. So I think again, and you can see also against the state averages I've listed here, the national averages, down in all areas, lower than the Massachusetts average, lower than the US average. I've also, cigarette smoking is listed on here, and also all the individual drugs by the type of drugs, ecstasy, stimulants, Adderall, they're all on here, and then the non-prescription drugs are also listed. And towards the end of the report, some of the risk and protective factors, but again, there are many others in the full report. Some of the things I may point out that are troubling as someone who's a prevention professional are the perception of risk. What we've seen in our industry, that as the opiate crisis has come to the forefront, we see the perception of risk of alcohol and marijuana decreasing, not just amongst young people, but also their parents have a perception that at least my child isn't using pills or heroin. So therefore it diminishes what alcohol means in our society and what marijuana means. And I think we have to keep vigilant and really be stronger with those programs. Again, the spotlight is on opiates and on heroin, but we have very, very few, if none, the numbers are so small, of anybody in our treatment centers who started with heroin or who even started with pills. Much of those stories that we hear, they're the exception. The kid that went to the oral surgeon and started using Percocet after they were given that for their wisdom teeth. That happens, that absolutely does. It's not the rule, it's the exception. And also, as we were saying earlier about safety, some of the risk factors, you know, kids that are showing early signs of risky behavior, how do we identify them? We also, Gosnell now has counselors at Mullen Hall at East Falmouth Elementary, and we're still advertising for counselors in Falmouth High School, Morse Pond, and Lawrence. And people say, well, what's Gosnell doing in an elementary school? I mean, kids aren't using drugs and alcohol at that age. They're not, but their families are. And that's putting them at risk. Some behaviors that are showing up in school, behavioral problems, anxiety, depression, are being shown now as early as kindergarten. So how do we start to help those kids and support those families so that they succeed in school, and so that some of these risk signs that they're showing can be eliminated earlier? We know the earlier we intervene, the better the chances are for the kids to succeed and for their families to succeed. So we also have parent education programs that we're running that the school department has supported. We have social host lessons in the high school. We support the pre-prom assembly that's put on by the high school every year. We do freshman orientation, open houses, partnerships with the police departments. So again, I'm happy to answer questions. I don't want to go on with details, but I can certainly answer questions if you have them. Trying to keep to my 10 minutes.
I'm wondering, the ones that are titled lifetime use, now I'm looking at the students who are answering these questions, and you know, they're ranging from age 13 to age 18. So is this about their lifetime?
That would mean ever for them, like have they ever, because when they look at surveys, they look at like sort of the immediate, the recent use, the 30-day use. Right now, they only measure prescription drug use over a lifetime. We don't even have statistics on 30-day use of prescription drugs, so it would mean their lifetime. Like they're reading that, and it really means, have you ever used a prescription drug?
Okay.
So when we say lifetime, it's sort of a term on this particular survey, but it would mean in their time frame. Like have you ever used drugs or alcohol? So 30-day use would be in the last 30 days, and the question being, in your lifetime, have you ever? So just the two different, the more recent use and what they call the lifetime use.
Okay. And I guess, I was shocked looking at this data because I felt like it didn't mirror what anecdotally we're hearing about our community.
That's the other, very good point.
I have a lot of questions about who was answering these surveys and if it's impacting kids who are older, or not kids, young adults who are after high school. Is that when it seems to be impacting, for heroin?
Again, the heroin use rarely begins in high school, and you're right, you bring up several good points. One of them is that it took everything we had to get this onto the front page of the paper. But you can pick this up and see all the overdoses. It's very difficult to get good news on the front page of the paper. And good news, what does that mean? Still 23% of kids are using alcohol, but the way we see it is it's decreasing. And the young adult population, it's much more likely to use and it's a continuum. It usually starts with alcohol and marijuana in high school and goes on afterwards to prescription pill use, and now it's going directly to heroin use. One of the unintended consequences of getting a lot of the pills off the street, closing the pill mills in Florida, having kiosks and such, and the cost of the pills has been a switch to heroin. So, and as far as the survey, the accuracy of the survey, there are questions embedded within the survey that are false questions. So what happens if there are a couple of made-up drugs in the survey, and if the kids say, yes, I've used that drug, it doesn't even exist, so that survey gets tossed out, probably about 10% of the sample. We find that the kids are very, very honest. It's all anonymous, it's voluntary. A letter is sent home to all the parents so they know about this. The survey is accepted and approved by SAMHSA, by the federal government under the Health and Human Services Department, so there are a lot of safeguards. And I think, perception is reality. That term that everybody drinks, everybody smokes pot, really simply isn't true. But is there a group that does, and is there experimenting going on? Absolutely. But I think too, that gives us more pause for thought on promoting all the positive choices that kids are making, and positive choices that kids are making within your school system and within your community, because of a lot of the good work that's being done. So I think it's an opportunity to promote that too. Again, I can get a bad headline into the paper any day of the week, but we fought tooth and nail to get it, on a Thursday or Wednesday, but I was still happy that we got it. The Enterprise is much more supportive, but that's part of the problem. And I think there's a lot out there that we hear, we hear all the bad, and we hear those one stories, and those people that are speaking around the country and telling their story, while appreciated and helpful, it starts young, it's identified risk factors, it's genetic predisposition, it's a brain disease. I mean, there's so many other things that we could be teaching about addiction, rather than just the single, everybody drinks, or the one kid that went to the oral surgeon and got too many Percocet. So I think it's just and again, we're happy to do more with the school department. They're incredibly supportive. I work with school departments throughout the Cape. I don't just say that because I'm sitting here before this particular school department. We have others where it's quite frankly very, very difficult. So it's refreshing to be able to work with such a great group of principals, administration, teachers, and then to be able to report this positive news. I mean, is it all good? I mean, do we always want it to be better? Of course, but what we see, this is very, very encouraging. So I feel very, very positive about it.
Any other questions?
I have one question.
Kelly.
Do we know, so you said it's voluntary?
It is voluntary.
So do we know what kind of response rate we got? Did I miss it? I might have missed it.
Number of students?
Yeah, that actually participated.
The number of students that participated, 550 at the high school and 267 in grade 8. I can send that full report to Nancy so that she'll have all those, the demographics, it's all
Yeah.
broken down in ages and such, so the participation rate was
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Just in kind of thinking about this a little bit more as you're talking, I'm just thinking about that, what happens after high school, and how do we wrap around more to support those students? Because if we've got a good support going on in our schools, and it looks like students are really, they're being proactive, they're really thinking more of preventative ways. How can we bridge that into when we're not part of their lives, when the schools aren't part of their lives? So
I think through the parents, and I think it's a huge drop-off point, 8th grade to high school, and high school transition to college are huge drop-off points. I think any education that can be given to parents of seniors with preparing not just kids for college, but parents for college, and how different it is, and how they're going to be exposed to things. I mean, I definitely don't subscribe to the theory that, well, if they don't learn to drink now, they're going to be in trouble in college. There are many other systems, certainly as a prevention person or as a parent, I didn't subscribe to that. But I think there are many other tools that we can give older kids to prepare to go to college or to go out in the world and go to work when they don't have the structure of school, or maybe they're not living with their parents anymore. I think there are certainly things that we can do, and that, again, it's a very risky time for kids when they leave high school.
And I know over in Martha's Vineyard, they have the youth task force that really targets that age group. And I don't know, maybe it's something that we need to start thinking about here. Or maybe there is something in place that I'm not aware of as to a community piece.
Any other questions? Patricia, thank you very much for your hard work. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is the Spring 2016 MCAS Park Results Presentation.
Thank you. So we are just queuing it up.
Thank you. Can I give you the chair for a couple minutes while I excuse myself?
Sure. Okay. There we go.
All right, so we have some packets coming around for you that gives you some of our testing information that was just released to the public today. We get the information a little earlier for the sake of planning purposes and to start discussions on how to start the school year. We've had many discussions with the building principals dating back as early as this August in terms of looking at our achievement and planning for the next school year.
And so a bit of a departure from last year, where it was our first year receiving park scores, and we gave you an MCAS presentation about this time, and the park presentation came about 2.5 months later. We're able to combine both of those as we have our conversation about initial results tonight.
So in preparing for park testing this school year, we did a lot of the same practices that we initiated the prior school year. We had monthly meetings with our park steering committee, which was comprised of myself, Sonia, Cindy was at many of the meetings because of the importance of the technology infrastructure for the testing, and the assistant principals of each building also served as the representatives for their school.
We also continued the process we had started the year before, so the first Friday of every month we send out a newsletter. We utilize the constant contact process and send it to all colleagues' email, just updating them on where we are in the process, so that as their assistant principals are asking them to come to training and things of that nature, infrastructure trials, we're alerting them to the process and the reasons why they're engaging in those steps at those particular times.
And then schools participated in infrastructure trials where they had the students sit at their devices pretty much just to see if the school could handle the amount of students who would be taking the test online at the same time, and we really did not come to any problems.
So one of the things that we learn about when we start to talk about the PARC data, which is our focal point for students in grades 3 through 8 for English language arts, literacy, and math, is that it goes the reverse of the larger conversation that we've been having. So we just want to remind you the accountability levels, level 1 is the goal for PARC, level 5 is the goal. So they work in the reverse of each other. So we just want to sort of call that out. Because certainly, you know, one of the things we're going to come back to at the end is talking about leveling on the side of accountability.
So, in terms of PARC data, what do parents find out about their students or their children? When the parent report goes home, they find out what level, which is the term that the PARC group uses, that their student falls into for each of the subject areas. So like Sonia said, when we're talking about PARC, a level 1 would be the lowest level of academic achievement, and a level 5 would be the highest level. So we're going to reference levels a lot as we go through our presentation, so that's kind of your cheat sheet.
So we're going to begin, we're going to take you through grades 3 through 10 for ELA literacy, 3 through 10 for math, and then we're going to call out the science, technology, and engineering results at the end of this process. So we are going to go back and forth a little bit between the PARC piece and MCAS because our high school students are still taking MCAS for graduation, and MCAS is still the only test available for science.
One thing to keep in mind too, as we're waiting for that to switch over.
It switched over on this screen, it just didn't.
We say this a lot, and we do mean it. PARC is just one measure of student success and student achievement. It's an important one, we know, because it's how we compare ourselves to other districts in the state and other districts in our area. But at the school-based level, it's really just one measure, and we know that any student can have a bad day, and you know, their testing scores really just give us a better overall picture of how are we doing in a district, and where are those big areas where we can focus for improvement.
Yeah, it's cooperating now.
There we go. So I'll first share with you the information. We broke these into grade bands rather than going through every single grade. We kind of grouped them together. So the first pie chart that I'm showing you here is the achievement for grades 3 and 4 in the area of English language arts and literacy. So we had 554 students in those two grades who tested. You can see, again, talking about those levels, what we really look for is level 5 and 4. That's what we consider to be the goal for our students, levels 5 and 4. In English language arts and literacy, we had 62% of our 3rd and 4th grade students perform at a level 5 or a level 4, which is an increase from last year where we saw about 58% of students achieve at the level 5 or 4 levels.
So Zach, can you go back to that? So it's just real hard for me to pick out the colors from the levels,
So the 50% the 12% would be level 5.
Okay.
The 50% is level 4. The 23% is level 3.
So it goes around from the 12 in a
Yes.
clockwise direction. Okay.
I'm sorry to say I'm probably going to ask that on all of them because I can't see it. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yes. So next you can see a breakdown school by school, just a visual to see the achievement levels. Again, if you were just to look at the East Falmouth graph, the left represents the level 5, and then it progresses 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 from left to right. You know, we do look at the different achievement levels of our schools just so we can have some broader discussions. But as educators, we know every year there are pockets of students and cohorts of students that are really high achieving, and sometimes there are cohorts of students that need to work a little harder and we need to put more interventions into place. So we certainly don't share this information to compare schools in a competitive way, but more in a way to learn and grow from one another. If we see one school that's really accelerating in an area, we want to find out what that principal is doing in their building and sharing those best practices. One thing that we've been doing the past few years is looking at neighboring school districts. As I said, we know PARC is just one measure of student achievement, but it is something that we look at throughout the region. And this year for grades 3 and 4, we can see that Falmouth performed well compared to some of our our neighboring districts. Last year, we actually fell third within the same grouping of schools, so it was nice to see that there was some acceleration in English language arts and literacy for the 2015-16 school year. Next, we'll be looking at grades 5 and 6 for ELA literacy. We had 68% of students perform at the level 5 or 4 level, which is a high number we were happy with. Again, we saw an increase from the prior year. 2015, we saw 65% of students. So a 3% increase in the number of students who are performing at that level 5 and level 4, which is something that we were happy to see. And then again, when we look at the neighboring communities, we see that Falmouth performed well for grades 5 and 6. Just to clarify how we picked these school districts, we based it on the districts who took the PARC assessment last year and this year as well. So these were the same schools that we shared this information last year with the same school district. So these are schools that have been taking PARC for the same amount of time as us. So just good information for us looking forward.
So to continue that process, we moved to looking at grades 7 and 8. And so again, beginning at the 12 o'clock point, 29% of our students earned a level 5 and 47% earned a level 4. So the combined percentage for grades 7 and 8 of students who earn the highest two levels of 4 and 5 is 76%. Continuing around the pie chart, 16% earned a level 3, 5% at a 2, and 3% at a 1. And this is more than a 10% jump coming across looking at the 4s and 5s compared to last year. So we had, for that 546, we had over 200 students, almost 250 students come through this, excuse me, I'm doing my math quickly, almost 300 students come through this process and earn the highest two designations of meeting or exceeding the expectations for English language arts and literacy. And so just to follow that pattern, when we go and we look at ourselves in comparison and looking at the grades 7 and 8 distribution, we can see we're all the way to the left, the means by which we have excelled in comparison to neighboring districts. And we have our neighbors in Mashpee on the far right, and we're about 10%, I think it's like 8% away from them. So that's the comparison there. So that ends the conversation with regards to PARC, and then we look at the familiar with the MCAS for grade 10. And you see a dramatic difference here, and you see that for an N of 199 students, we had 98% of them in both proficient and advanced, 99% of them passing. And as Nancy has been challenging us to do and put a face behind the data, we know the stories of many of our students, but in particular, we're very clear about the stories for our two students who represent the 1% for needs improvement and the 1% for failing. And the interventions that's being afforded to those students, but pretty significant achievement for our district across the board for English language arts and literacy. And this is a percentage at which we've held steady, the 98, 99% passing on the first attempt for MCAS. And then just to kind of close that out, here's that comparison for the MCAS scores, and this is combined looking at advanced and proficient. So you can see 98% of our students in the combined advanced and proficient. And the bars on this one, they only adjust by 2% because the percentages were closer. So Excel, when it generates this to show you the trend line, shows fewer percentages in those intervals, but still exceeding our neighboring districts. And again, even though every school took MCAS at grade 10, we thought it best to continue that pattern of looking at the same districts for all tests.
So we'll follow the same pattern and now go through our mathematics results for you. So again, looking at grade spans 3 and 4 for PART, we had 60% of students perform at the level 5 and 4 levels. This is a 5% increase from the prior school year for grades 3 and 4. So again, we're happy to see that some accelerated growth within those 2 grade levels. Again, the next slide will just show you the different schools within the district and where their levels fell. Again, not for the sake of a competitive nature, but to learn from one another and find out where we're seeing increased achievement and trying to learn from one another. Again, looking at the neighboring communities, Falmouth was again at the highest level for grades 3 and 4 mathematics. Again, last year we weren't, I don't like to use the word in first, but last year we weren't the highest performing of those school districts. I don't know.
Yes, you do.
All right. Last year Barnstable had outperformed our 3rd and 4th grade students, and this year we were just slightly above them. Sorry, Patrick.
No.
Sam, can I ask you a question? Do you know what math programs the other districts are
Off the top of my
using?
head, no.
Okay.
When we look at grades 5 and 6, again, we're seeing an increase from the previous school year. In 2016, we had 56% of students performing at level 5 and 4. The prior year it was 54.5%, so a slight increase, but an increase nonetheless, which we're happy to see that accelerated growth is happening from year to year. Looking at 5th and 6th grade comparisons with the other districts, Falmouth again scored very high, and again accelerating our growth from the previous school year. Mashpee outperformed us in the 5th and 6th grade math test, but we still held strong with other districts within the area as well.
Continuing to Lawrence and looking at grades 7 and 8. So as we come across the clock, starting again at the 12 o'clock point, 15% of the students earning level 5 and 48% of the students earning level 4. So we have a combined for grades 7 and 8 in mathematics of 63% earning at those levels, 23% at 3, 9% at 2, and 5% at 1. This is an improvement from the previous year, and I think one of the other pieces to call out now that we've looked at the ELA and literacy data as well as the math data is that Lawrence School, we're going to get to the accountability ratings, but is a solid level 1 ranked school for accountability. So in looking at that and in keeping with the trend, we would really like to call out this next graph. But here is our comparison for grade 7 mathematics across our 5 schools. The reason why we're not looking at grades 7 and 8 is because with the PART test, there's an option in districts to take a grade 8 algebra test for students who complete algebra. And so 3 of the 5 districts, 3 of our neighboring districts, use both tests. So their data for looking at grade 8 math didn't match up because they isolate a group of their students. We do not. Falmouth tests all students at the end of grade 8 so that we have one metric, one measure to look at all students comparatively as they conclude their time at Lawrence and prepare to move on to the high school. So we isolated grade 7 math for this comparison, and you can see again the jump between the lines on the bar are 10 percentage points. So we were pretty excited to share that as well. Shifting over to talking about the MCAS, so for our sophomore students, you can see that 69% of our students ranked at advanced. This was up by a couple percentage points, 21% at proficient, 8% at needs improvement, and 2% in the failing range. And again, the students who are identified as failing, there is an intervention plan afforded them, and they have an opportunity to retake this test in the first week of November. But also that combined, looking at the number of students who are earning advanced and proficient is demonstrating additional growth on the part of our students in mathematics. Falmouth High School is also a designated level 1. So here's that Cape District comparison looking at grade 10 mathematics. Again, combining percentages of students who are earning advanced and proficient. Falmouth on the far left, Barnstable, Bourne, DY, and Mashpee on the far right.
Next, we'll take a look at our Science and Technology Engineering MCAS assessment for 2016. This is taken in 5th grade for the elementary level, and this represents all of the content students have learned in 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade. So I say this a lot to our Morse Pond teachers, that they don't hold 100% of the responsibility. It's really 3 years worth of work that's assessed on this one test. 2016, we had exactly 50% of students scoring advanced or proficient, which again is the measure of MCAS terminology, which is up 1% from the previous school year where we saw 49% of students. I pulled the state average for that because we can do that, and the state average was 47%, so slightly above the state average. And then again, just looking at the other districts within Cape, Falmouth scored at the top within the group there, with the exception of Mashpee, who scored a little higher. So again, solid showing of that 5th grade math test, which again, it's 3 years of work that's assessed on one test. So a lot of work goes into preparing students.
Likewise, we see the grade 8 test, again, following that three-year pattern of instruction being assessed. So this is testing the students' knowledge from grades 6, 7, and 8 cumulatively in life science, physical science, and Earth science. Yep, sorry about that. So we are also in the process of adjusting our curricular scope and sequence to account for the new standards in science. So we are hopeful to see gains going forward with this, but just to kind of look at the trend with other Cape districts, we are still out ahead in terms of the number of students earning advanced and proficient. And one of the chief changes that we're looking at is not isolating each of those sciences one per year, but actually looking at a design that introduces a bit of life science, a bit of physical science, and a bit of earth science each year in a more spiral design, to make sure that we're attentive to the knowledge and skills that our students need, and so that it starts to intertwine and is transferable from year to year and area to area, as opposed to isolating each chunk and then expecting them to remember how all that connects at the end of the 3-year sequence. It's not just about the test, but also that transferability of skills that benefits them interdisciplinarily in all domains, not just in school. And then grade 9 biology, you can see the combination here. So again, if we go around the pie chart starting at noon, 41% of our students earn an advanced rating on their grade 9 biology, and 42% earned proficient. That's a combined 83%. An additional 13% earned needs improvement. So all of those students have earned their competency determination to move forward with graduation, and we have 5% who are identified as failing. And again, an intervention method strategy has been put in place, and those students will have their first opportunity to take the test for a second time in February. And with very little exception, we found that all of our students, when they sit for a second test, if they need to, pass. There are rare instances, certainly, where a student is attempt, but again, those are rare. So just to call that out and look, so we're seeing 83% here earning a combined advanced and proficient, and then we look across the neighboring districts and we see that there is an adjustment here in the trajectory or the trend line that we had seen consistently in the previous part of the presentation. And one of the other pieces here is that this is an option for us to take it in grade 9, and some of the other districts across the Cape actually take their biology test, or they use a combination of biology, chemistry, and or introduction to physics. We isolate out biology for all grade 9 students, so some of these students may be taking a variety of different courses, and it may not be an entire graduation cohort. So there's a combination of factors, but certainly this is something to which we are attentive, and moving forward with our alignment to the new standards are really paying attention to curricularly and then instructionally.
So next we'll talk a little bit about accountability, which is when you hear districts come out and say, you know, we're a level 1 school, we're a level 2 school. Again, it works backwards from the PARCC scores, where you want to be a 5 for a PARCC score. For accountability, you want to be a 1. So as the screen says, all Massachusetts schools and districts are classified within one of 5 accountability levels. And this is based on a combination of things. Number 1, it's based on your achievement. Am I jumping ahead? Okay, it's based on your achievement, so how you did on this test, and then more importantly, how well are you meeting the needs of students who really need to increase their proficiency? So you might actually have some schools that maybe are not the strongest performing schools, maybe a level 1 because they're doing a really nice job of closing proficiency gaps for some students.
So here's a summary of accountability both for the district and that first grade outline at the top. Falmouth Public Schools is a level 2 district, and then a summary here by each school across the district. And one of the other pieces to call out here is that a district accountability rating is assigned based on the lowest accountability rating assigned to one individual school. That sounds a little convoluted. So we don't have any schools that ranked below a level 2, so therefore the district would be a level 2. It's not an average of all of those. So should we have had a school with a different level rating, then that would have automatically been assigned as the district's rating. We are calling out here Falmouth High School maintained its level 1 status, which it has had since the inception of accountability ratings. And Lawrence School is also, as Tom and Rebecca had called out earlier, under the innovation plan a couple years in, achieved level 1 status, and they've maintained that as well.
And then the 4 K4 schools and the Morse Pond schools stayed at a level 2 for this year. So just 2 more slides to just describe what does a level 1 school look like and what does a level 2 school look like. To be a level 1 school, the school cannot be within the lowest 20% of schools within the state. So Falmouth High School is judged or compared to all the other high schools within the state. The lowest 20% are automatically a level 3, 4, or 5. And secondly, each school has goals that they try to meet in narrowing proficiency gaps for their entire student body, and then also their high need students. High need students would be students who are fall within economically disadvantaged, special needs, or English language learners.
One of the other pieces we didn't put up here is that also attached to accountability ratings are participation rates in tests. So you need to have 95% or higher of the students enrolled at that particular grade level participate in the test. And so that's another big conversation sort of to have in terms of talking about testing when the conversation about opt-out or refusal, that conversation happened, because that does impact accountability ratings for schools and districts. So it's important to call out here that we have had the appropriate participation rates, and we've actually exceeded 95 in most settings, but that's another factor that ties into this.
And then a level 2 rating, again, your school cannot be within the lowest 20% of schools within your same grade span. And then what's happening is you're not meeting your annual goals for narrowing proficiency gaps for your subgroups. So we
do it all the time. So that just kind of wraps up what we had presented to share with you in terms of a summary of the data as it's been released today, but we'd be happy to answer any questions.
And over the next 2 meetings too, the school improvement plans are going to be presented, and each of the school improvement plans gives you more specific data on their school. So that's kind of why we left this more broad today, because the school improvement plans will break things down school by school, grade by grade.
When do the individual students get their results?
So the MCAS scores arrived in district today and were distributed to schools, and then the PARC scores we're doing today, we're anticipating them in tomorrow's shipment, and hopefully they then will go home to families on Monday.
Thank you. Questions?
Yeah, a little bit about your intervention strategies. How do you set those up? Obviously, you've identified the kids based on their scores. And what kind of support do they get? And if they're taking the test, 2 months down the road or whatever, how intensified is that?
At the elementary level, what we do is we look at the internal assessments that we have in place. So we do a baseline assessment every fall with a program called FAST, which is the Formative Assessment System for Teachers. And what it does is it just gives us a baseline of, if I'm a classroom teacher in 3rd grade, I can get a baseline of my individual students, but also my class as a whole. We had conversations with principals this year about really looking at this data, and if you see that Teacher A has students who are performing relatively low in reading, but teacher B has a higher achieving group, you're going to want to allocate your resources in the building, whether it's your teacher assistants or your reading specialists, to spend more time and really targeting our interventions often. Then we do the same assessment in the winter to see, are we minimizing those achievement gaps? Are there now new students who are on the radar who weren't in the fall? So that way we're not just waiting till the spring, like you said, 2 or 3 weeks before a test, and really trying to intervene, at a higher intensity level. So we want to be really strategic in the interventions we provide and get them at the lowest possible grades. When we look at this data for 3rd grade, we can say, yeah, a lot of those students we probably knew in 1st or 2nd grade we're going to struggle. Well, then my question always to principals is, well, what did we do about it?
Okay. Thank you.
So it's a little different with grades 7 through 12, as you just mentioned, the immediacy of the retests. So we take a combination of formative assessment data from the opening of the school year that our departments and our teachers score holistically, and combine that with looking at the standards on which the student's performance was below proficient. And so we either do one of two things. We either enroll students in an additional workshop offering, just because of the way that the Bell schedule works and not wanting to pull students out of their primary courses. Or we also have an MCAS tutoring program that we've had over time that would take a student from where they may have a scheduled academic support and give them some additional support in preparation for the retest. And then we also have, moving forward, and I'm sure Mary Gantz will talk about it next week when she introduces a school improvement plan, but the task period that they're looking to adopt and the level of intervention that's going to put in the middle of every student's school day. So we have just a scaffolded series of interventions that we use to support students, not only for the retest, but also to bolster their skills for success across all courses.
Okay. Leah?
So I was under the impression that this year was a held harmless year also with Park. Is that true?
Correct.
Okay, so our levels would have remained the same even if there was a big dip, but it doesn't appear that there was.
Correct. And
So-
they'll tell you on your accountability report, you're still a level 1, but it's because you were held harmless.
Yeah.
That wasn't the case for
okay.
Falmouth High School. Lawrence would have been a level 1 even if we were not held harmless.
What I understand though from that held harmless is that it does not take into account participation, so you could still get whacked with that piece, which I just learned. A question, well now maybe more of a comment about the science. So I know that there was a presentation from Morris Pond talking about the focus on science last year, in looking at the scores being kind of similar to what we saw this time. And I think, I think we probably all feel this, that we are in a very scientific community here, so why is it that our scores are so low on those assessments versus our ELA and our mathematics? So I'm just pushing that, more focus on that, and I know that's what I've heard that people are doing. And when we look at the innovation plan, there's that plan to embed STEM into all of the curriculum that's going on, and I think that's great. But I'm excited to hear about what these exciting science pieces are in the future, because that's obviously a need that we have, and I would like to see Falmouth way surpass our neighborhood, our neighboring communities on that, because of the richness we have here within our community. So, comment that was.
So I want to follow up on that.
Okay.
So, I don't think anybody's happy looking at the science stuff. But from what you said, the state's doing a crummy job too, if the state is at 47%. But I'm wondering if there are, in fact, districts in the state who are up in the 70s and 80s. Yeah. And I'm wondering if we're doing anything to look at, so what are they doing, what are those districts doing differently in science?
Yeah, in my experience in other districts in teaching, there really aren't many that I've seen. The problem that I see, and this is why I emphasized this when I was talking about this, it's a test of 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade content, because the way the old standards were written, it was a grade span. In grades 3 through 5, here's what they need to learn. Your district decides in what year they learn what. And that's a real challenge, especially when you have students coming in and out of the district. You don't know what they learned in 3rd grade if they moved here from another town, So that's a challenge. Quite frankly, in elementary school, literacy and math is the focus. We certainly do teach science and we do teach social studies, but we just know literacy and math is taught every day. Science, you may have 3 big units throughout the course of the year. So it's just a little different way we schedule the elementary level. The new science standards that we talked about last year changed from that grade span, and now 3rd has their own science, 4th has their own science, 5th has their own science as designated by the state. So I think that will help us in terms of determining what specific professional development do our 5th grade teachers need, and our 4th grade teachers need, and our 3rd grade teachers. So I think moving forward, some of those shifts are helping us.
John?
Sonia and Zach, I appreciate what you did on such short notice with those, with the scores coming out today. When I first saw that and I wanted to try to look at it intelligently, I was saying, oh, why did it have to be today with the meeting tonight? And I'm sure you felt similarly, and it's great that you put all of this together. With that said, one thing that I'd really think would be a powerful tool would be a comparative. You had said it on anecdotal levels, like, for example, the math 5th and 6th grade park from 2016 over 2015 was 56% up on section 5 and scores 5 and 4, up from 54.5. I would love to see, and I really frankly think it's all Greek to everybody unless we do see this, a year-over-year trend of like 3 years, so you can see, there's not an outlier year. So then that way you can see, otherwise we really don't say, hey, we're good at this, we're good at that. It's great that you set them on individual ones. With that said, the district comparative is great. So that basic type of thing applied to the individual grades of, okay, last year in this section we had this many 5 and 4s. This year we have this. The year before, the 3 years. And I love the fact that you did the one that had the state average too. So to add to each one of those comparatives of the Cape district to have the state average too. That'd be great. But otherwise, it's outstanding that you did this just for today. It's fantastic.
I have a question.
Listen.
On the ELA grade 7th and 8th park, it was stated that there was a more than 10% jump from last year. Why do you think that is? What are we doing differently in that section that there was that great a jump?
I think there's a combination of factors in the way that they approach some of the work, because we also saw similarly at grade 10. So the English department starts every year by looking at which standards it is on which they did perform below the state. So they usually have this whole protocol, and they couldn't use it this year because there was no standard on which we performed below the state when you looked at, for example, the MCAS assessment. So I think it's just the culmination of their work and their approach to their work. They've done some shifts around digital composing. So you have a computer-based assessment for grades 7 and 8, and the work with the Chromebooks and the digital composing process and how that's different. So they're really just being attentive to taking the traditional skills for English language arts and literacy and some of those more tech-oriented skills and just really bridging them well and how they move students forward.
Thank you both.
So then at the high school, they are taking a MCAS 10 math, which I assume would be some type of algebra, just an assumption, and then a 9th grade biology. So those are the only two MCAS that are given at the high school level.
And ELA in grade 10.
ELA, thank you. I missed that.
The math is a combination of Algebra 1 and Geometry. I think moving forward, they're going to start to integrate more Algebra 2 to it.
Okay.
But the biology, it departs from the traditional MCAS in as much as English language arts and math look at a lot of core skills that students develop over time. And then the biology one just isolates out the content from that 1 year and affects students, certainly differently in terms of how they approach it.
Yes, and those are all graduation requirements, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Getting back to my first question, do you think that it has something to do with the innovation school and having the liberty to schedule things differently and just the whole setup of what we just learned more about and talked about a little while ago?
I would say certainly, and Nancy can probably speak more to it, but the professional development period that they have worked into their daily schedule is phenomenal, and the grade levels come together to work on that, grade 17, grade 18. The lab or workshop courses and what they're able to provide for students by way of intervention and support Those are just two immediate things that stand out.
I agree. They do meet as teams, every other, as grade level content area. And then they meet with the department heads. It made a huge difference. And actually, I think one of the biggest pieces when I think it was the first year of our innovation school, we did 7-12 department heads. And that made a huge difference because we used to have 7-8 department heads and then 9-12.
Right.
And we decided to link it all the way back.
Got it. Good job.
Other questions? Leah?
One last comment. I just want to talk to what you were saying, John. The really tricky thing with Park is that we only have 2 years. We're going to have a new assessment this year, and so we don't have a trend. So if we compare last year and this year, we don't know what those factors are because students were just getting used to the whole infrastructure of taking this test. So it might be,
Well, you can still have the 2 on there, and then you can make whatever
but
disclaimers
just
after
as
that.
far as a trend goes, we won't be able to get that.
Fair enough.
And I think, if hindsight, if we could have had the foresight of knowing that the state wasn't going to adopt Park, probably we would have decided to keep with MCAS, so we could have had some consistent data. And I know Sandwich did that, and I was talking to someone over there. I'm like, you're so lucky, you can look at all of that. But so many districts did what we did, and it's 2 years of not consistent data.
I'd still like to see it for both of them. I mean, MCAS, we'd have the 3, but I mean, even if it's just 2, then you see here's the delta from one to the other.
Any other questions?
Just a comment, in trying to go through some of the stuff this afternoon, it was looking at your time factors of, one, the technology to cut down the overall administration point, I think is great. And obviously kids getting acclimated to that earlier is really good as well. And the timing for the testing itself is cut down. And I think that's important because the more testing we do, the more we take out of class time. And so I'm seeing that as one, organizationally very well done, and obviously the time factor, cutting it down. I can give you a math assignment and say do all 20, or I can give you a math assignment and do maybe 5 or 6, and still know what I'm evaluating and what assessment you're getting. So I think that's really good.
Other comments or questions? Thank you both.
Thank you very much.
All right, moving on. Next item is to designate a delegate to the November 3rd, 2016 MASC business meeting. So I think I sent an email out to everyone asking if anybody wanted to go to the meeting, and if so, if anybody wanted to be a delegate. John was the only one that came back to me, said that he would like to be the official delegate. Does anybody else like to throw their hat in the ring? Can I get a nomination for John to be the official delegate from the Falmouth School Committee to the MASC business meeting?
I nominate John as the MASC business
He's the delegate too.
Delegate to the meeting.
Say that 3 times fast.
I'll second what she said.
Any discussion?
Thank you for doing that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, now he's the delegate. Now,
Thanks, John.
so they're going to vote on a bunch of things. So as part of your packet, you got the report of the resolution committee with 4 resolutions. So it could be, I guess, our choice as to whether or not we want to vote on these resolutions to give something to John as our official stance on these, or we could leave it to John to make his determination. How would people like to proceed? On at least one of them, which was resolution number 3, which is charter school reform. We as a committee already made a vote to I forget what our wording was, but basically we're in favor of this. So I would certainly hope that you would at least vote yes on the resolution number 3.
Did we not talk about the foundation budget? I remember it coming to us.
We did not talk about the foundation budget. We can talk about the foundation budget now if you want to, because
No.
that is resolution number 1.
I just seem to remember it coming at some point. Maybe it was just in an email.
People want to vote on these resolutions, or you just want to give John carte blanche to represent us?
Do you have something that you can offer us, Patrick?
Guidance, Patrick?
The Assembly of Delegates, in the Assembly of Delegates, the language can change through motions. So the language that is on this may change. So if something contrarian happened in the Assembly of Delegates, you may want to make sure that John uses his wisdom to recognize that and vote. But so just general assumptions that you either support something in the general wording is probably good enough.
So I'm happy to leave it to John's discretion, with the exception of resolution number 3, which I think we are already voted on in favor of. But again, you have your discretion if things are changed. Everybody fine with that?
Yes.
All right, let's move on.
Thank you, Morris, Representative.
Thank you.
Routine business, approve the minutes from September 13th, 2016.
I had one change. Can I go? Or do you want to
Please,
make a motion?
go
first?
ahead.
Just number 6 on the last page. Melissa's name is just got an extra letter in there.
I didn't even see that.
You didn't catch your own.
I didn't.
It's okay. You can catch mine next time.
Can I get a motion to approve the school committee meeting minutes from September 13th?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Thanks for noticing the name.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, Sharon, again, for a fantastic job in terms of doing the minutes.
So, Alan, I would like to comment on our last minutes. Is this an appropriate time to do that?
On the last minutes or on these minutes?
No, we're not on those minutes, on our minutes from the last time.
Okay.
Is that okay to do that now? Or should I wait till?
I think you should, if it's not on these particular minutes, I think you should wait that until individual reports.
Okay.
Okay.
It's from a comment from this last minutes.
I'm sorry?
It's a comment, it's part of these last minutes.
All right,
Part
if
of
it's
the
part of these last
Okay,
minutes,
okay,
talk
so,
now.
So I want to acknowledge something so that was written in these minutes, and it's not an edit, it's just to have a comment on it, that I was not present at the August meeting when the school committee voted to change the schedule meeting for the October 11th to next week. And I just wanted to have a comment about that. So on our minutes, it is my understanding that during the school committee meeting in August, the school committee voted to change the scheduled October 11th public meeting to October 4th due to the community public not having access to that evening meeting due to religious celebrations. In our minutes, the header states changed school committee meeting date October 11th, 2016 due to Yom Kippur. And from my understanding, that does not accurately describe the decision and the discussion that happened during that meeting to change the school committee date due to the access for community members who would be celebrating Yom Kippur. As a school committee, I feel we work very hard to abide by the Lemon Test and to think, to make sure that first, the statute must have a secular legislative purpose. Second, its principal or primary effect must be one that neither advances nor inhibits religion. And finally, that the statute must not foster an excessive government entanglement with religion. These are just by the Lemon Test, the 3 prongs. And so I believe it is our obligation to ensure we are acting with secular purpose. And for this reason, our reason for the meeting and not for meeting or not to meet cannot be due to religious celebrations, but instead for community access and participation, which is exactly what I think we decided for switching that meeting. And I just wanted to voice that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Superintendent's briefing.
Okay, just quickly, I would like to call out two things. Firstly, the East Falmouth Elementary School received a very generous gift from a donor who wishes to remain anonymous, and he also wants the amount to be anonymous. But East Falmouth is very grateful because they have earmarked, the PTO has earmarked that money for what they call kids' essentials. Things that kids need, very basic things, whether it's clothes. I know they purchased a pair of eyeglasses for a child, and we're just very, very grateful to that donor. And then the second thing, just again quickly, I was over at the Morse Pond School and I went into Sue Kelleher's classroom, and she had done a project with the kids on the man in the red bandana, and I don't know if you know about that project, but the kids just had this amazing time, and they wrote letters to the parents of this young man. They sent a picture. All the kids had their red bandanas on, and it had all come from this book that they had read and then had read with their book buddies. And it was just an amazing project. So I just wanted to point that out, that we have so many good things going on in this district. And I just happened to stumble into her classroom and take a peek, and I was very impressed.
I would love to see the picture.
Me too.
Okay. I think she did send some pictures, but then the big picture that they sent to they framed it and sent it to the parents.
That'd be great.
I could get a copy of that.
Great. Any questions for Nancy? All right, moving on. Sonia, do you have anything that you would like to highlight in your report?
No, but I would be happy to answer questions.
Any questions for Sonia?
Yes, the timing for the accreditation, how many years is that in
10-year intervals.
10-year intervals? Okay, that's what I thought.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you. Zach, anything that you'd like to highlight from your report?
I'll just be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Questions for Zach?
Just a quick comment, piggybacking on what Bill said. I'm just so happy to see the numbers reducing on how much time the kids are testing. It just made me so happy to see.
Agreed.
Yes.
Great. Any other questions for Zach? Thank you. Charles is not here. Anything that you want to highlight from Charles' report, Nancy?
Nope.
Cindy, anything you'd like to highlight from your report?
No, I'll just take any questions that you may have.
Questions for Cindy?
No, I just mentioned the time saved. I think that's excellent.
Great. Patrick, anything you'd like to highlight from your report?
About an hour's presentation to do.
Go right ahead, turn the lights all the way down, please. And turn off my mic.
No thanks. No.
I will make a note on yours, though. The senior center, where you say the school committee may need to consider updating their vote. The town will need to approach us to modify. What we did, if you remember, is we voted to transfer the land that is the present soccer fields to the town for construction of the senior center. The selectmen have evidently now chosen a different site, so they would need to come to us to ask us to transfer the land of the field hockey sites for the senior center. So if they choose to do that, then the whole issue that was brought up at the beginning of the meeting about the field hockey sites will be on our agenda for discussion. They have not yet done that.
I thought we had voted for that exact site.
We did.
For 3. Site 3,
No.
number 3?
No.
We had not? Okay.
No, we voted for the soccer fields.
Out front.
Right.
Out front.
But isn't the Brick Hill one the site 3? The one to
No.
the left of the...
No, where the soccer fields are now, right on Brick Hill Road,
Okay.
is site 1.
Okay.
Site 3 is behind the tennis courts with the field hockey field.
Okay.
Different site. So they will need to come back to us
We
for
will.
that.
Yep,
And
definitely.
so at that, if they choose to do that, then we will need to have that on the agenda as was requested by the audience earlier tonight.
So then site 3 is behind the tennis courts, correct?
That is correct.
That's what they're asking for.
That is what, from watching the selectmen's report that they have, the selectmen's meetings that they have done. So let me actually jump to that, because that was going to be part of my thing.
And I
have a.
Thank you.
Yep.
So, let me jump to that, and then if there's more things that we want to ask Patrick about it before. So, if you read the article in the Enterprise at last week ago, yesterday's meeting, Falmouth Board of Selectmen reaffirmed their intention to bring 2 articles to November town meeting for funding to move a playing field and for design of a new senior center. Town meeting will be asked to fund the design, construction, and relocation of an athletic field elsewhere on high school property to make room for the new center. A second article will ask for funding for a design for the senior center. So that's what they did last time, was they put two articles in town meeting. One was to fund the new field. The other was for design of the senior center. And evidently, that's what they're thinking of doing moving forward.
You want to go first?
All right, so
Sorry.
any questions on the senior center piece?
Yes. Yes.
Go.
So I'm concerned about potentially this, it being on the agenda for us to do basically what we already did, but for a different plot, without having additional information about the feasibility of relocating that site. I'm concerned that people that have years of experience are saying that there's no other suitable site, and I don't want to be caught approving everything and then finding out after the fact that we can't put it.
So if that comes on the agenda, we'll make sure that that is part of the discussion.
Okay, and whatever relevant information we would need.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
So we would have to approve that before it goes to a vote then, correct?
We would have to,
Approve the site
yes,
before it goes to a vote in November.
At town meeting.
before it goes to town meeting. That is
Yes.
correct. Well, you could still do it in town meeting, and we, but if we don't transfer the land, they don't get the land.
True.
Melissa and then John.
Which leads me to my question that the town just can't take it by eminent domain, right?
I'm not a lawyer, I don't know.
They can, but they've never in the history, I think, of Falmouth taken land by eminent domain. At least that's what someone always says at town meeting whenever we talk about eminent domain.
Let's remember, we're the school department, we are the town of Falmouth.
Right.
The town of Falmouth owns the land. Whether or not one aspect of the town government could take it away from another aspect, I don't know.
Okay.
John?
I'm not trying to lobby that we limit our choices here.
So don't get into a discussion about the fields.
No, but, well, with that said, though, I'm pretty sure that Site 3 was that Gifford Street extension. That right what they're talking about now was the Site 3, not by the tennis courts. What they're talking about is moving that spot to by the tennis courts. Site 3 was the one right where the field hockey and lacrosse was originally, that we voted that was okay to do.
No, we voted on the site that is on Brick Hill Road.
Correct, yeah.
The site that they're talking about now is behind the tennis courts, where the field hockey field
And is that called Brick Hill Extension? Or
Gifford Street Extension.
Gifford Street Extension?
It's a different site.
Okay, so, okay,
It
because
is
that's
a
what I did
different
look up,
site.
Gifford Street Extension. So that's behind it, okay.
Any other questions on this?
I just, could
Go
you
ahead.
refresh my memory in regards to I possibly may not have been at a meeting? You speak of a vote that we had approved? Or did
I
we
don't,
vote to
we,
transfer?
in February of 2016.
Okay.
I don't have the exact date.
Okay, then I possibly was not here, okay.
I have it right here, is we voted to declare certain land surplus for school purposes and approved transfer to the Board of Selectmen for a new senior center. Be it resolved by the school committee of the town of Falmouth that a certain area of the campus of Falmouth High School containing yada 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 blah 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 prepared blah 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 is no longer needed for school purposes and may be transferred for the care, custody, control, and management of the school committee to the care, custody, control, and management of the Board of Selectmen to use exclusively as a site for a new senior center, provided, however, that the town of Falmouth should complete construction at no cost to the Falmouth Public Schools of a new athletic field on the campus of Falmouth High School of compatible and better quality to the existing athletic field on the land to be transferred within 24 months of the town meeting vote appropriating funds for the purpose. The Falmouth Public Schools shall continue to use the existing athletic field on the land to be transferred until the new athletic field is complete, available for use and accepted by the Falmouth Public Schools. Construction of the new senior center on the land to be transferred shall not commence until the new athletic field is complete, available for use and accepted by the Falmouth Public Schools. And construction of the new senior center shall commence on the land to be transferred within 24 months of the town meeting vote, appropriating funds for such purposes, or 48 months thereafter.
Okay, my only question is, and I think we need to seek some advice, is if they are going for a different site now, if that vote was specific to the other site, whether we have to rescind that vote.
I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Yes. So as part of a new vote, we might rescind this vote, as opposed to then having
I just
transferred two pieces of land out there.
Exactly. I think we need
what
to
you're saying.
get some
I understand
advice.
what you're saying, right.
And then
Right.
if we need to, that appears
Right.
at some point.
And to Kelly's point, yes, we would need to know prior to doing it whether or not there even could be a site for a comparable or better quality
Right.
athletic field.
Yes.
All right. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions on Patrick's report? No other questions? All right. Moving on, report from the chair. So I just gave you one piece of it. Another part I'll give you is the start times, school start times task force is moving ahead. The surveys were released to the students, to the faculty, the staff, and to the parents. We've gotten those responses in. Are any of them still open?
The student one is open.
Okay, but we got those in, and we're starting the process of going through the data. We are meeting as a task force on Thursday afternoon to kind of take a first look at that. We had scheduled to give an update on the 11th. Given that we moved everything forward, it won't be as big of an update, but we will give you an update on the 4th. We have also scheduled, the Community Education Forum has been scheduled for October 18th per the schedule that was released. That will be held in the high school, in the auditorium. We also sent out, under Nancy and my signatures, a letter of invitation to, I'm going to say somewhere in the order of 20 superintendents of schools, inviting the superintendent of schools, any school committee members, any athletic directors, any other interested citizens to come to a meeting at Falmouth High School on the 24th. Neither of these things are to make decisions. These are public information forums to exchange ideas, to hear where people are, and so forth. So those are the next steps. And over the next couple of months, we'll be having other meetings with the PTOs, school council, booster clubs, and these kinds of things. Any questions on that? Last thing on mine is that I will remind everybody that our next meeting is next week, the 4th, and it is at 4 o'clock here. All right. Any updates from anybody else on the committee or requests for follow-up information?
That after the meeting, the reason why our meeting is early is because of the FEF showcase that night, and that starts at 6:30, 6:30 at the library. And there is a buffet or a cocktail reception prior to that you do have to RSVP, I think by this week.
This week.
Yeah.
Anything else from any committee members?
I have two quick
Kelly.
requests. One, I'm wondering if we have any news on T-Ticket. I forgot to ask when it was your time.
We continue to meet with town officials to sort of gauge.
But are we
where we're
on,
at.
is everything sort of on track? Are we hopeful?
The schedule has not changed at this moment.
And my other question is a follow-up from last time on Calmer Choice. I had asked about Calmer Choice at Morse Pond in addition to the extension to 3rd and 4th. And I was under the impression that it wasn't at Morse Pond, but then I have a kid at Morse Pond and it sounds like it is. So I would just love some clarity on that.
It is at Morse Pond. And I believe it was Joanne Sykes who worked with Pat Dietland from a grant who got trained themselves. And so I believe that they are doing Calmer Choice.
So the kids there are all going to get it. Great. I don't need follow-up on that, then I'm good.
Anything else from anybody else? John?
Just a comment since it came up, great point, Kelly. Just kudos, Nancy, and all the team working with the T-Ticket kids. I just actually talked to a T-Ticket parent of 2 children, one that's at Morse and one that's at East Falmouth, and he said everything's going great. So just everybody, the teamwork across the district is fantastic. Thanks for bringing it up, Kelly, too.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Anything else? Okay, Kelly, you're in the seat. You get to make the motion.
Oh, really?
Yes, you do.
I move that we adjourn? Oh, no, I have a long thing to say. I don't know what it is.
Right there.
I move that we move into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining. An open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining. It is expected the school committee will not return to public session.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please. Walter?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, we're adjourned into executive session.